Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Downtime with Downstar, episode 155. And today we are here with Alfredo Mancuso of ONSOMESHIT.
You did it perfect, man. People like butcher that, and even though it's phonetic, people really butcher that.
I try, man.
Look,
just looking at it, I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
But once you break it down, you know, I had to tap into like my fifth grade skills.
I saw you clapping, so I assumed that's what you were doing. This, you know, like when you do the syllables.
Yeah. Mancuso.
There you go. Boom.
Fredo, thank you for coming, man. I appreciate it.
No problem,
Thank
man.
you for this.
Thank
mask,
you for having
dude.
me. This is super sick to be out here.
Thank you,
we should
dude.
probably take them off for the audio, just because
Hey,
they look badass. But
make sure you guys pick them up on OnSomeShit.com.
thank you, sir.
Of course, man.
Oh, all right, there we go.
I love it. I
Cool.
love it.
Oh, it's stuck to my ear. There we go.
Dude, thank you so much for coming, bro. I appreciate it.
I'd pound you, no homo, but you know, it's one of those things right now.
Yeah, it's, you know what's so weird, dude? In these times right now, it's like I still feel rude not embracing somebody or, you know, shaking their hand or something. But
I've been doing the bow.
Yeah.
I'll do the foot one sometimes. That one's pretty cool.
yeah, I do that. It's the Rona tap, man.
Yeah, there it is.
But thank you for coming, bro. I really, really appreciate it. So for people that aren't familiar with you, can you give us just a quick breakdown of who you are and what you do?
So, as you said eloquently, my name is Alfredo Mancuso. I'm Italian and Argentine. So when people always ask, like, what are you, man? Because they're like, you look white. I'm like, bueno, la verdad soy argentino. So
Oh,
tengo una-
shit.
Yeah, exactly. So that was actually my first language. I learned English from Sesame Street.
Oh, wow.
My mom was like, all right, when you go into my household, you only speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Or we speak Castile, to be proper.
Uh-huh.
And when you're outside, all English. So it paid off dividends right now. You know, like,
Yeah.
I'll be at a restaurant, somebody will be dissing, and I'm like, hey, hijo de puta, you know, like, just say some shit.
Yeah.
But it's, essentially, I'm from born and raised in LA, and I grew up in Watts, California, which was, I think, top 10 most dangerous places in America, especially in the era that I was growing up.
Yeah.
In the 90s, Watts riots, all that kind of good stuff. And then when I was like 13 years old, my dad passed away, which basically forced my mom to like move us from Watts to Lakewood, like a suburb of Long Beach. And then from there, I made the majority of my upbringing was like in Lakewood, Long Beach. And then I moved to LA because of the ONSOMESHIT store.
Yeah.
So I guess I skipped around a little bit, but essentially throughout that, when my dad passed, I put all my energy and focus into BMX riding. And essentially like within like 2.5, almost 3 years, I got to turn professional for BMX. So that's kind of like what guided the rest of my path up until this day. And over the last few years, I've been living in more of like the Hollywood area because we got a store on Melrose under the brand ONSOMESHIT, which goes back to BMX. You know, when people see you doing crazy stuff, they're like, man, you guys must be on some shit. Yeah, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at today. So essentially BMX rider, got into like making content for BMX. So I was helping with the camera. Then one day I just literally decided to like flip it around and do like the little selfie thing. And that kind of took off. And I was chatting with you earlier. I ended up doing, I think the exact number was like 409 episodes or something like that in a row.
My God.
I think I skipped, and it wasn't even like a true skip. I think there was 2 days where I couldn't upload because of like internet issues. So like I missed the midnight deadline. And when you're doing something so crazy like that, people are really like, no, man, he missed a day, so it doesn't really count. Which, you know, I don't really care so much, but it's one of those things that, I don't know if you've tried things like let's say a diet, right? It's easier to do something 100% of the time than it is to do it like 90% of the time. You know what I mean? So when I get into something, I really get into it. So when I started doing YouTube, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bang this out. And like, I did. And then I went crazy. Got a little bit of gray hair everywhere. And, you know, at some point I was just like on autopilot, literally.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where, like, I'll like look at videos like you were playing one earlier and I'll just be like, I filmed that? I was like, I don't remember any of that stuff. But yeah, that's where we're at today.
That's crazy, man. There's so much to unpack, dude.
Yep.
You know, it was this guy Christian from Honda
Vlogs.
Yeah.
So the funny part is like growing up, I always like, you know, you heard that saying, like when you meet your idols, like they always kind of disappoint you.
Yeah.
So there's two things about that. Like when I was coming up as a BMX rider, I didn't really even think I was ever going to turn pro or make anything of it. I just wanted to be really good. So I would just like ride my ass off, because you see some people in like skate videos and you're like, oh man, in this video he does everything perfect every time. And then when you meet him in real life, you're like, oh, you can't land shit.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to be really dialed, so I try to focus on everything I do. I can almost do it almost every time, you know? Well, the other thing too was like, I just remember those people were like disappoint me when I met them. So one thing I really pay attention to and I really wanted to focus on was just being nice to kids that look up to you, or just even like don't know much about the sport and want to learn about it. And then same thing with your fans, you know, like engage with them, you know, talk to them, answer their DMs. Sometimes it gets crazy. Like you'll get hundreds of DMs. Sometimes you might get a couple, but you know, you got to put yourself in their position. They're like reaching out to you, which is scary. And sometimes these other pros or industry people, whatever, like you could see nowadays they've seen it, you know, and they don't respond to it. Just like it, just do something, a little engagement every once in a while. Like obviously you have millions of fans. That's impossible probably, but you know, go around, just pick some random ones and do it. Well, lo and behold, one day Honda Vlogs DM me, was like, yo man, I see what you're doing with like these like news segments. You should probably do more of them. I do them on my channel, Honda Vlogs. And he's like, you know what, man, my homie Frank, he's doing a podcast. You should go podcast with him. And it happened at like the right time, because again, like it's one of those things where it's like a symbiotic relationship. So like if you address the people that look up to you, your fans or whatnot, you know, sometimes you're going through the lows, and a message from a fan really does help reinvigorate you. And at the time, I kind of took a little hiatus from vlogging and like just YouTube content in general, because like I wasn't like a tumultuous place in my life. So when he DM'd me, I was like, you know what, this would be a good idea. I haven't done a podcast in years, literally. And I've only done 2 other ones that were both with Adam from No Jumper. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do this one. I haven't done one in a long time. You seem like a super cool dude. You had just done the sheepy one. Yeah. You done the human made one, but a bunch of cool ones that I liked. So I was like, you know what, yeah, man, let's do this. So shout outs to Christian from Honda Vlogs for doing this.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. He's always helping me out, you know, in my DMs, you know, just complimenting the podcast, listening to it, giving me feedback, because that's what I need all the time, you know, especially with podcasting and vlogging and things like that. It helps when you get the feedback
100
from the people watching it, and everybody that gives me feedback on it, I really, really appreciate it. And then some people, they'll send us guests like, hey, check out this guy, you know. So
that's the cool thing about the internet. And like now more than ever, now that we're going through this crisis, this whole pandemic, you know, I think that this is going to be like an opening for a lot of people's eyes, that we've been losing community. You know what I mean? As humans, we should be building towards community, because you ever heard that saying, standing on the shoulders of giants? So for those of you guys that don't know, it just essentially means that there was someone that came before us. And the reason that we're so advanced at this point in our life is because we basically learned and use other people as a platform to get to where we're at. Well, it's the same thing for everything we're doing now. You know, like, again, it's like a feedback loop. So you put out content and someone might DM you and be like, hey man, I really like the way you're doing this, but I noticed that you always like smack your teeth or something annoying, you know, like, I'm like, oh, you're right. You know, so like I really work hard on that kind of stuff. Another thing, going back to like making a ton of videos in a row, I hate editing a bunch of random stuff that I don't have to. So I got pretty good at being eloquent at not making little clicks or saying the or the like, you know, like what I just did right there. But it's one of those things where, again, the feedback loop from the community, and like if you go and give them something, they're going to give something in return. And I think it's Gary Vee's always like left, you know, like jab, jab, right hook, you know, like you give away a lot of content, they're going to give you their understanding, their feedback, their perspective, and then now it's a little community, you know?
Yeah, I love it, man. And there's a small group of people that, you know, when we put out an episode, I get up in the morning and look, and there's maybe 50, 60 streams on it already.
Right.
And that's dope to me, because that's about 50, 60 people that are starting their day with the podcast. Just like I started with like Joe Budden podcast or something.
Oh, you listen to him?
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
So Adam and I, again, Adam22 from No Jumper, when we used to take like long car rides, we used to listen to Combat Jack, Joe Budden, and then Joe Rogan before like he became like the biggest podcaster in the world. Yeah. And Adam got lucky to interview a couple of those dudes, and I'm sure at some point he's going to go on the Joe Rogan podcast, because his is gaining so much traction as well. But it's cool to like think that, like, you know, again, standing on the shoulders of giants, we're looking up to these dudes, and sometimes it's crazy to think that some of them might be watching your content. You know, one crazy person might be watching this. Like I always say that Adam is followed by Drake, and then Adam has posted me on a story, so at some point Drake has seen me. I've existed in Drake's eyes. You know, like, it's kind of crazy.
And then now you're here now.
Now I'm here
Drizzy,
with you.
What up?
Yeah, you see, you never know. We never know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And speaking of Adam, he's actually one that's really motivated me, because it's given me a direct path that somebody's come from the bike community.
Right.
I'm coming from the automotive community, which arguably that is possibly a bigger community.
100%. Yeah.
You
Not
know,
arguably.
and then taking that and then turning that into a podcast and
Right.
then being able to, talk with artists and things like that. That's what I want to do, because that's the reason that I started the podcast. You know, I've been doing Downstar for the last 10 years now. And just like anything, it just gets repetitive.
Right.
Besides this year where everything just got messed up, every single year I know where I'm going to be in May, June, July, August, every single month I'm going to be here. And it's a pleasure that I get to do that, but then it's kind of not that I already know what my schedule is going to be, you know? So
But then again, let's not take that for granted. You know?
Yeah,
because
no.
now with all this, you don't necessarily 100% know. A lot of the events that I thought I was going to go to this year, and that's, again, the awakening. It's kind of like, well, man, everything gets snatched away from you. Like, there's people that had the best job that they ever wanted in their life, and now they don't know if they're going to go back next Monday.
No, definitely, man. And this is so I was doing the automotive stuff, and then I've always been into podcasts, but it was just like a little side thing that I did. You know, I listen to podcasts, and then I've just always wanted to start my own.
Right.
And it was just like, yo, you just got to do it.
Right.
And
You're already doing
and
a
we
great
did
job,
it.
man.
Thank
So
you. I appreciate it.
I've gotten to see people from like their inception to like where they're at now, and the only thing that differentiates all of them is just like the work that they put into it.
Yeah.
You know? When I started writing, when I started getting into business, into YouTube, whatever, I wasn't necessarily naturally talented at any of it. I just knew that I was going to out hustle everybody around me. I was just going to put my heart and soul into everything, and at some point it's going to happen. You know, a broken clock is right twice a day, so you can either get lucky or you can just work your ass off and just hope that with enough work you'll get better at it. But you also have to kind of, like, going back to the feedback loop, is like be open to criticism and knowing how to change things and pivoting, and that's super important. I don't know if you knew this, but YouTube was originally a dating company. It didn't work.
Really?
So they pivoted and made it a video company. Look at it now. Same thing with Post-it notes. That used to be a company for adhesive, but it didn't work good. Well, it works really good when you make up note and the adhesive doesn't ruin your stuff, but you can still take it off, you know? So pivoting is really important in life.
Yeah. So you were speaking about out hustling over 400 episodes in a row. Where do you think that comes from, that grind, that hustle?
Coming from my family comes from originally Italy. They moved to Argentina. And then my dad met my mom, which is a cool story. My dad's side, it's pretty successful at business, and they essentially make picture frames, like all the elements to a picture frame. So they source the wood, they cut it down, they do make the molding, they get the glass, they get all that stuff. My mom's side of the family is very poor, and they assembled the picture frames. So one day, my aunt sent my dad to go deliver some product to my other aunt, which is my mom's sister, and my dad met my mom there, and my dad was like a playboy.
Yeah.
I think at the time he must have been like 50, 52, something like that. And my mom was like in her 30s. And like my dad like swooned my mom, and then like months later he's like, move to America with me. And my mom was like, but you don't know English, you don't know anybody there, like, what are you gonna do? He's like, we'll figure it out. So they jumped on a plane and got out here, right?
Wow.
Then they had me, and then 2 years later they had my little brother, which is Man Cobra, that a lot of people now in the car industry know. And growing up, you know, I didn't know this like until way later, but when my dad first got here, it's like any small community, you know, like people, like let's say Argentine people, there's a tiny niche of Hispanic people, which is like a big group, you know, so they try and find each other. Well, my dad ended up finding the wrong Argentine dude that ended up scamming him out of his money. So my dad almost had nothing left.
Wow.
So he basically utilized the last bit of money he had and bought this old little pickup truck. And then from like the South Central area, he would drive to Beverly Hills and he would collect cardboard. And then he would recycle that every day. And I remember like growing up, I probably was like 9 or 10. I would go with him, and it was crazy because like he had this old little beat up truck, and he would make like these big wooden planks on the sides, and he'd collect all the cardboard, right? Compact it down. And then we would drive through all these like very rich areas, and we would go through the street. And I remember like it was like yesterday, and it was like there's a Ralph's, and my dad would turn left into this alleyway and go all the way down, and it would dead end. And it was a school. And I just always remember, like, I used to have nightmares. This is really random, but I used to have nightmares that my dad would leave me in the truck while he would go get the cardboard, and it was a stick shift. And in my nightmares, the truck used to move forward and just fall down this crazy, like, hill.
Yeah.
And that terrorized me because a couple times my dad got out of the truck, forgot to put it in park, and it did, like, move forward. And I was like, Dad, you know, when you're a little kid, that I was like, oh, man, it'll drive you crazy. So I think I had one of those nightmares like not that long ago.
Wow.
Random. But so fast forward to where I'm at now. When we opened our store, I one day was walking down this alleyway and I looked up and it was at school. My dad used to drive through the same alleyways where I had my store.
No way.
And it was Fairfax High. That's where my dad would churn. And our store was diagonal from Fairfax High. So essentially the same alleyways where my dad would go and collect people's garbage and like go through it and bring us, essentially like he would go and recycle that, get money. Or sometimes he would even go to Ralph's and they would just gift him like fruit and vegetable. You know, so that same place of affluence is where I ended up getting a store all throughout, like kind of one event to another to the next that led up to us saving up enough money to open the store in Melrose. It was really like came full circle. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy when stuff like that happens.
Yeah, especially when you realize it, you know, you're like, oh man, this clicked. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's how I feel about relationships too. Like you were saying about opening DMs and talking to your supporters and things like that. You know, I really took that to heart maybe like a few years ago. And it was just realized that, you know, people that I expected to be in my corner weren't. But then you have all of these supporters that you don't even know who they are. They're always showing support. So it really opened my eyes to where my attention should be.
Right.
You know, and, you know, most of the most important relationships I have to this day, I can take that all the way back to where we met. And if I didn't make that introduction, if they didn't, if I was a dick, you know, we would have never had all of those, you know, 10 plus years of relationship.
I think it is super important too to engage with people first, because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know if they're nervous to meet you. You don't know if they know you or don't know you, whatever. It's just super nice to introduce yourself. You know, like I always go up to a group and like, hey, what's up guys? Alfredo, whatever. Sometimes people don't give a crap. Sometimes they'll nod. Sometimes they'll come and say what's up. But it's just better to open that door versus when you go somewhere and you're going through something and someone looks at you and you kind of just give them the head nod, whatever. They're like, they might know who you are.
Yeah.
And they might be like, oh, he cool guyed me. When in reality, you were just like having your own day. You're in your own zone. Like I put my headphones on. I go to the skate park and I'll do my own thing. But I like to engage with them, at least at the beginning, just to let them know like, hey, I acknowledge you. You know, like don't think I'm a dick. I only have 30 minutes to ride. And in those 30 minutes, I'm going to take 45 laps. So just, I'll be over there.
Yeah.
You know?
Have you always been so outgoing?
Oh man. Yeah. I think I got like, you know, in like the little like middle school and then later on in high school, like in the yearbook at the end, I said like most likely to be a class clown, most likely to do all these things. And like, I guess because going back to the Watts thing, I grew up in an area where there was not one single Caucasian person. Right. And then it was predominantly African-American and Mexican, like straight up. So they always thought I was white. So they would pick on me. I remember getting bullied from like probably the first grade all the way up to like maybe the sixth grade around that time. And they would call me like white out and Casper. And like one dude really hated me. You know, like when you have that bully in your head and you remember his name, Matthew Cifuentes. And dude, I would walk and he would just kick me from behind. I would like stumble and stuff. And then my mom is like my mom's like literally Mother Teresa, and her name is Teresa. She's like a saint. Like if you ever meet her, whoever has been fortunate to meet her, she's literally like a living saint. And I would tell my mom and she's like, oh, you know, like Dios los va a castigar, which means like, you know, God will punish them. You just do your own thing, ignore them, be nice to them. But I think that's what made me kind of like become outgoing and just be very witty. And like, I always in my head have like an insult. And when someone like says something to me in my head, I have the insult ready to, you know, cock back and fire.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh, is it worth it doing that? But in my head, I'll giggle. I'm like, I know what I was going to say about you. You know, like it's just one of those things where you get into the situation, you're sizing someone up. Well, in my head, I'm like making a joke about them. But that was, I think, like my defense mechanism of getting bullied. So it just made me like outgoing and like, you know, kind of want to engage with people. And at the same time, like show them my worth as my intelligence or my wit, which drove my teachers crazy. Cause like I would finish my work before anyone just so I can make jokes. But then the teacher would be like, oh, your work's wrong. Oh, damn, you got 100% again. You know, like that's what, like, that was my cap. So they were like, oh man, all right. Well, so they had to figure out, just keep me busy. This is why I brought this Rubik's Cube. Because sometimes I'll just like, I have so much ADD, so much energy that I need to be doing something. So I'll solve this Rubik's Cube over and over and just like chat. And this one my girlfriend gave me for Christmas. It's like the coolest Rubik's Cube. It's all these shapes. So like,
that's wild.
I bring it anywhere and people are like, what the hell is that? I'm like, it's a Rubik's Cube. And they're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this, you know? But
I can't even do a regular one.
Once you get good at the regular one, you'll understand how to do that one. But this one is still really hard because some of the shapes just don't want to get in place. But see, there's my ADD. Like I'll start on one tangent, go to the next one, go to this one, go to that one. So I've always wanted to like do a podcast,
Yeah.
and then I just know like don't do the podcast because you're gonna talk about 30 hours about nothing. Like you're just gonna go in circles. So today I made a conscious effort. Like, all right, focus. Cut yourself off after like 2-3 minutes. Like go back to the topic.
We want to see the real you, bro. Don't worry about it, man.
This is the real me. Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
love
just
it.
it's just more of a focus me because
Yeah.
if you know how like we all think differently. I've talked to a lot of my friends and I think way differently than a lot of them. Like I still haven't found like a lot of like people that are in the same wavelength where like I don't tell them everything. I'm like, you're gonna think I'm crazy. Like unfortunately everything that's happening right now I already knew was gonna happen. Like not in like I could see the future, but it just kind of like the steps that it was taking. Like 2 weeks ago I was like, oh, we're getting quarantined, we're getting this, we're going that, and I was already prepared for that stuff, you know what I mean? And I tell my friends same thing with the stock market. I'm telling my friends like do this, do that, and they're like, what? No. I'm like, okay. And then a week later they're like, dude, what do I do again? I'm like, no, now you missed that train.
Before you get out of here today, I want to use your code for the Robinhood.
Oh, you should.
And
Dude,
I want to get
it's
on
not
that.
a joke. Like if you guys have Robinhood at home, ask me. It's on my Instagram story. As soon as you sign up, I get a free stock, you get a free stock. They're not worth a lot right now. They're $4 or $5. But right now we're going to hit the lowest of the low. So it's one of those things where you just throw it over there in the bank and you don't think about it. And 2 or 3 years from now, some of those stocks could have skyrocketed to maybe even $100. You don't know that. And that's just one stock you get for free. Then once you start doing your little due diligence, you know, you can start seeing some other stocks, throw $10, throw $15, and just pretend you threw it away. Just pretend it's over there. And then check back like a year later. You'll thank me then.
Dude, yeah, definitely. If you remember,
No,
I want to do it.
Besides talking a lot, I also have a really good memory. So I'll just be like,
I love it.
catch
I have a
up.
terrible memory.
It's just
For
practice,
some
I think,
things,
you know?
For some things.
Yeah, but see, that's sometimes it's like, is it really your memory? Is it that you're just not focused sometimes? You know, like if you really take it in fully, then I think you'll realize you have a pretty decent memory.
So let's go ahead and get into where you said that you knew this was coming. Let me tell you my side,
Sure,
and then see if there's any parallels.
I know exactly where you're going
Okay,
too,
right?
Because my mom had it too.
Well, I'm a very conspiracy focused kind of person.
Right.
Not that that's the way that I think, but me as a person, I understand that when we're given a fact, there's maybe a reason why we were given that fact, but that might not be
Right.
the true
Do you
fact.
mean like misdirection?
Exactly.
Correct.
You know, so I always go on Reddit and things like that, and I seen where things were going in China. I
Right.
seen it spawn
course.
from when they were showing the videos of the first elderly people just passed out on the floor,
Right.
to where they were running out of supplies, and it just got insane.
Let me ask you a question right now because it's going to get to that point. I just want to
Yeah.
see where you're at with this. Do you think that Hollywood creates movies based out of nothing? Or do you think that they create movies and then that's kind of how things end up happening? Or do you think that somebody knows something?
I think that a lot of these movies, they're just not out of the air. You know, I think that we're kind of being programmed to think a certain way.
I agree.
You know, especially with shows like The Walking Dead.
Right.
You know, how's that show going to be one of the most popular shows ever? And we're on the same track right now, you know, except with this disease instead of being a zombie. But
Correct.
if people start turning into zombies, then
Another side note. It seems my brain. You know that zombies actually can happen?
Really?
But not the way in the movies.
Yeah.
There's a strand of malaria that literally kills part of your brain, but not all of it. So you still have some motor functions. That's where zombies came from. Like the whole premise of a zombie is like, you're not going and attacking and eating people. They added that, you know? But you can be kind of like a living zombie where you're kind of still like some functions, and then shortly you die. It doesn't last for a very long time, but that's where it all kind of spawned from.
I always see them outside of Starbucks. They're early.
yeah.
They're early in the morning.
Coffee is legal crack. You ever got an anxiety? Have you ever gotten that?
Not an anxiety attack, but I
Ever in your life?
I have an anxiety.
Never in my life had I had it until 2 months ago. And it's because I didn't even realize I slammed like 5 coffees that day on an empty stomach.
Oh,
so
shit.
So nothing, right? And I'm with one of my business partners and we're talking about something. And I literally looked at him and froze. And I was like, dude, you got to take me to the hospital. And he's like, you're white, which made it worse. And I was like, oh. And then he's like, here, drink this. He gave me a bunch of stuff. And I started drinking water and I started relaxing. I was like, oh my God. I used to think anxiety was a myth.
Yeah.
Like, no offense to anybody out there. It's not that I didn't believe you. I didn't know how bad it was. I don't wish it on you, but if you ever do experience it, you'll think back to this moment or another moment where you saw someone else with an attack and you'll be like, dude, I feel for you.
Yeah.
It's crippling.
Yeah, I've never had an anxiety attack to that point, but I definitely do have anxiety. I take a CBD drops. Like
Okay.
I have it with me next to my
Right.
wallet all the time. But back to Reddit, you know.
Reddit,
So about like mid-January, I'm watching everything unfold, and nobody has a clue because only a certain amount of weirdos are just doing that kind of stuff,
Right.
you know. And then I see it going crazy, and then I see it start spreading to other countries. And I'm just like, yo, this is coming, guys. It's not going to stop just because we're the mighty US of A. Things
Right.
are not just going to stop here. And especially us being so close to Los Angeles, and a lot of, business gets done in Los Angeles, traveling to China and things like that. I knew it was going to get to this point, and I had this conversation with so many close people to me, and they just didn't believe me. I stocked up probably 3 weeks ago. The shelves were full of everything.
Right.
I went over there and I filled up the car with water and supplies and things like that. And I've done it maybe 3 times until then. And it's not until like 2 days ago that my dad's calling me and telling me, you should do this. I'm like, dude, I told you about this
Right.
2 weeks ago and you were laughing at me.
Well, one of the worst things is that when you're right, it's, you have to like literally not say, I told you so. It's because then you look like you're a jerk. So you got to be like, okay, yeah, I got 2-ply roll toilet paper I can send you, hook me up later,
Yeah.
that kind of thing,
Yeah, but I just always like to keep my ear to the streets and try to see what's going on in society,
Right.
and kind of playing chess and saying, okay, well, maybe this is going to affect us somehow, or maybe this, or what have you. But as far as things are right now, I'm not sure it's where it's going to go. I feel like we're going towards martial law just because a lot of people aren't taking it as seriously. Leaving my house to come to work, maybe about a 10-minute drive, and if I didn't know what was going on, I wouldn't think that anything was wrong.
Did you see anything about Jared Leto?
No.
Okay, so I've heard this from a couple friends. So a couple friends really know him. He essentially runs a cult. Like he's a very charming, very talented human. So you can see where he can kind of like manipulate people, do stuff. Well, he was recently on like a 12-day meditation cult thing, and he just came back, and he didn't know anything was happening right now. So he's like, "What the heck is going on?" But from what I remember, and I probably can't fully tell this story, but I'll give you some details. He is friends with Elon Musk, and Leto basically tosses some girls, just like, "Yo, I got these girls, like the super hottest girls ever." And he has like this like spell on them, and he'll just be like, "Oh, let me introduce you to my other successful ass friend, Elon Musk."
Yeah.
Like, here you go. But now Elon's dating some girl Grimes that my girlfriend informed me about the other day, so I don't know how that still's happening. But just one of those things like I live in Hollywood, and I've been in LA my whole life, so someone that knows someone that knows someone, and that someone might be someone that everyone's like, "Oh my god, that guy." I'm like, no, not me. My homie knows him. I just know some good stuff.
Yeah.
Mind if I grab some of this Perrier?
Go ahead, bro. I got that one for you.
Thank you so much
man.
for getting this for me. What flavor do you get me? Grapefruit fire.
Yeah, of
So if you
course.
guys are ever interested in the keto diet, just one thing that you'll really learn is looking at labels and just seeing like what is in a lot of the stuff we eat. And man, there's so much bad stuff in all the stuff that we consume.
Yeah.
But just do your due diligence. Like, look at this. I'm like, okay, 0 sugar. Good. I'm in.
Yeah, I was watching one of your videos, and you spoke about being keto, and then you mentioned that, and that's the same reason that I drink, is because I stopped drinking soda probably at least like 5 years ago.
That's awesome.
And
It's delicious. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I used to drink a 2 liter a day.
oh shit.
Well, this energy, something has to keep it up. Like for a long time, people were like, "Man, that guy must be a cokehead." I have never done cocaine in my life. I don't need it. It's
Yeah.
already in my blood. Like I'm already like juiced up. This sugar I just loved, and now with this, it makes me feel like I'm still drinking a sugar or a beer or whatever. I could just pretend, and I'm like, "Oh man, this is delicious."
Yeah.
But it has nothing bad.
So
for you.
when did you give up soda? Is it when you started keto?
I've been trying to on and off for a long time, but then you go eat with your parents or your friends or somebody, and somebody will have a Coke there, and I'm just like, "Oh man."
Yeah.
So last year, no, it's been 2 years now. I just decided, you know what? No, now is the time. Like I'm over 30 now. I really have to focus on this. So I just cut it out. I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? And again, going back to that 100% rule, if you just don't do it, because if you do a little Coke, not that kind. If you drink a little bit of Coca-Cola, then you want a little more Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Then you want something else. So it's just better off just stay right there.
What about this, dog? Vanilla Coke right now.
My foot's tapping, I'm starting to sweat. And, I'm like that episode of Key and Peele where you're just like sweating bullets. can't see things. Yeah, that's how I feel.
My wife, she drinks soda and she'll get a vanilla Coke every once in a while, and I'm like, oh my god, I want that.
The best things, like the most fire flavors and just like the experience you get, are probably usually the worst things for you. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not against it fully. Like every once in a while you can do it, you know, but it's just excess. Like when you do anything in excess, I mean, even drinking water, you know, you can kill yourself by drinking too much water.
Yeah,
that really happens. It literally will thin out your blood. That's if you drink like more than, I think, 3 or 4 gallons in a day.
That's a lot, dude. I could barely do one.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
I gotta be super disciplined.
You really want to kill yourself when you drink that much water.
There's a lot of easier ways than drinking so much water. But so you don't drink soda. Do you drink alcohol?
So this is all interesting. From 0 to 21, never had a drop of alcohol. And then I dated this girl for 4 years. And it was like 2 years before I was 21 and then 2 years after. And it was like night and day. She like introduced me one day. She's like, hey, why don't you drink? It's so weird that you don't drink. And I was like, I don't know. It's not my thing. Mainly because my mom told me it was like terrible. And like my dad died when I was 13. He was 71. He had me at 55. And he was a healthy dude. He rode bikes. He did everything. Didn't drink alcohol. Didn't do anything like that. So I looked at it and I was like, man, 71, you know, like that's pretty young in the grand scheme of life. I want to take care of myself better. So I didn't drink alcohol. Then my girlfriend was like, try. I was like, fine. I got a dry martini because I saw it in the movies, saw James Bond. I have a weird affinity with olives. I just love olives. So I was like, oh, olives, James Bond, this is going to be great. I literally put it in my mouth and I thought I was like, you know, like rubbing alcohol, and I spit it out. I was like, oh, it's disgusting. And she's like, okay, what's your other favorite thing in life? And I was like, Coca-Cola. She's like, Jack and Coke. I was like, boom, let's go. Oh man, it took me 4 years basically to really get into alcohol. The first 2 years I would just drink to get drunk. I hated it.
Yeah.
But it turned me into like a wild man. Like essentially because of the alcohol, I eventually got rid of my girlfriend. I was like, you know what? Like this was cool and everything, but it wasn't really just that, but it was kind of like an awakening too. It was like, well, you know, we started dating when we were 19. That's exactly around the time when like all my sponsors started sending me places.
Yeah.
And, you know, 20, like I was like, all right, you know, I could do this. 21, I can drink now.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is going to be unfair to my girlfriend, just like drag her through this. I didn't want to be one of those dudes that cheats on his girlfriend and breaks up with her on the weekend and gets back to her on Monday. Just like, you know, so I was like, you know what? I called it.
Yeah.
And then after that, the next, I don't know how long, it was just crazy because like, when you don't do something for so long, it's suppressed, and then you start doing it, then you're like, oh, let's party, let's do this. So then it's essentially now I really don't drink at all. Like very rarely. I'll drink with my friends. I'll drink like 1 or 2 beers and I'll cap it there. Again, caloric intake. So I'm like, oh, if I'm going to drink, I'm just going to take 2 shots. That's it. You know, cut it there. That way it's like, doesn't mess you up too much, and it doesn't give you like a lot of calories, and you don't want to be hungover the next day, because then when you stop drinking, the hangovers are worse, you know, because your body's not used to it. So nothing against it. It's just for where I'm at right now, especially with this whole thing. Like, I don't see myself drinking for a while, but every once in a while, I'll get drunk with my friends, but nothing crazy like in my early 20s where it was like bottle service at nightclubs and this and that. And then when you're a pro rider, and at the time I was sponsored by DC Shoes, so they would just send us places, be like, yo, we got you at this club, whatever you want. Yeah. It's like, well, okay, you guys said whatever you want.
Me a martini over here.
Not those. I still don't like those. I'm not much of a vodka guy. Are you?
No.
Do you don't drink at all?
I haven't drank since 2010.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Damn, 10 years. That's crazy.
So
was there a reason for you, or?
I mean, just growing up, I seen the bad that alcohol does. Yeah. So it took me a long time to start drinking. The same thing. I was probably in my 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there before I even started drinking, and that's when I was going to house parties and stuff like that. So
don't get me wrong, it's cool, it's fun with your friends, but then there comes a point where you're like, you start realizing that a lot of people around you are real alcoholics. Like I could cut it off. I was never like, I guess you could call us like binge drinkers, because I wouldn't really drink Monday through Wednesday or something like that, or Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday you catch up, But I can turn it off. I can just be like, I have to do a contest, I have to do a video part, whatever. I just stopped. But then you notice your other friends are like drinking daily, and it's like, number one, that's not good for your wallet.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of people like really in my friend group growing up that could afford drinking that often. Number two, not good for your health. And number three, besides like you like don't feel well, you start looking haggard, you start getting puffy and all this other stuff. So it's just, if you're gonna do it, chill, never do it once in a while. But if you're doing it daily, that's where it starts.
And then ladies, you get that little panza. Don't think that we don't notice.
Yo, yeah. Not for me, bub.
So yeah, I started drinking a little, and then going out to clubbing and things like that. And the weirdest thing is I got Invisalign probably about 23 23, 24-ish or so.
How old are you?
And I'm 35.
Okay, damn,
Yeah.
you look young, man.
Thank you.
'cause cut the alcohol.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So when I went to get Invisalign, they said, okay, so if you want to drink alcohol or soda, you have to take it out.
Right.
And if anybody's ever had Invisalign, when
I had
you
it.
first have it in and take it out, dude, that's the worst pain. And then have to
I think
put
putting it back in, especially because I would forget it sometimes.
Yeah.
I remember at the time that I got them, I was like 24, 25, and I had just DC Shoes flew us out to Southeast Asia for like 2-3 weeks. And I took a bunch of trays with me and I ended up losing them. So I had the top ones from like week 7. And I had the bottom ones from like week 33. I was like, some weird thing going on there.
Yeah. So they said that you need to take them out. So I was going out to the club, every Friday, Saturday, whatever it was, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
You would drive to Hollywood?
No. Just here locally.
Local.
Yeah. So then I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna stop drinking. Just try it.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'll just try it. And then that lasted for a week, and I'm like, damn, that's kind of crazy. 2 weeks, a month, and then it just clicked in my head, like, yo, you're still going out to the clubs, you're still having a great time, hanging out with people. You're not the weirdo that's like, come on, let's go home. I'm fucking over this. You're still having fun.
Right.
So then that turned into 2 months, 3 months, and then now I'll never drink ever again. I didn't drink at my wedding.
I never heard that story from like in that way. I've always heard like something bad happened or something. You're the first person that's just like, you know what? I'm not into it. I can go back and forth because there is something about it. Like you've obviously been drunk before, so you know how to relate, But if you've never done it ever, there is that weird thing where you're like, are you even human, man? Like, you know what I mean? Like at one point you got to try it. I was the same way with drugs. Like I didn't do anything my whole entire life until I was 30 years old, basically. Like before that, I tried smoking weed with my friends a couple times. Did not work. I was not into it. And that was like, I might have been 28, 27, something like that. And then I started like, I had this like really terrible idea of like all these people that like, I'm like, oh man, you're such a weirdo doing all these drugs. And then one day my friend was like, just try this shit. And I was like, all right, whatever. Yeah. And it was Molly and it was crazy. It was nuts. And then after that, because that one is just like, you have a good time or whatever. But the one that was crazy, and I don't think I'll ever do it again, was mushrooms.
Really?
Yeah. Have you done it?
No. I've been wanting to.
Okay. So I don't want to ruin this for you.
Scare me out of it.
Okay, no. So if you guys are bored at home, and I know that a lot of people are right now, go onto my YouTube channel and look up, I vlogged my friend's acid trip. So in this episode, I film Adam, Brandon Began, Connor Keating, and one more of my BMX friends. We hike up to Griffith Observatory and they all drop acid.
I never watched it. I've seen it, but I never. Oh, dude, I'm gonna watch it.
Like not because it's me, but there's 2 videos. There's one that I filmed for my channel, and there's one that I filmed that Adam stole from my channel and then put it on his, and then he adds a little bit of fluff to it.
Got you.
You should probably watch both. But on mine, I vlogged basically the whole thing. It was like a 45-minute vlog, but it's one of my like better vlogs. I think it was like really fun. But when I started reading the comments at the time, I had never done any drugs, so I was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. And they're like, man, you're ruining their trip. You're doing this, you're doing that. And I was like, you guys are crazy. They're fine. Like none of them were tripping too crazy. Like I felt like I talked them off the ledges. Although at the very end, at the time, I had this Porsche Panamera.
Yeah.
And it was the S. So it was like the bigger liter engine. So they were all in the car. And on the way down from Griffith Observatory, I was going hauling ass. And they thought they were literally in a spaceship. Because like, have you been inside of the Panamera?
No.
The center console, all of it is like designed to almost look like aviation. Like it's got all these nozzles and buttons and stuff. It looks really cool. So they're just like, later on, they were like, dude, I was tripping so hard. I thought I was in a spaceship. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Shit. I definitely recommend it because I can't even describe it in the sense of like, it's not like a dream. It's the most vivid dream you've ever felt in your life because you're still conscious. But at the same time, things that don't make sense are happening. Yeah. But in your brain, it makes sense. Yeah. It's almost like you have this connectedness to the universe that you've never had before. Yeah. So again, it's almost like an apology to all my friends that had done drugs in the past. Like, it's like, man, now I know what you're talking about. Like now I really do understand like why like certain hippie people or people that are like more into like Buddha or, like just different things in life that kind of like give them feeling and reason. It makes me feel more empathetic towards that. Like, oh, I know what you're talking about. It does feel like there's a greater good. It does feel like we're more connected than we really are. And man, try it. Like obviously do a tiny amount, do it with someone that knows what they're doing. Hopefully someday it is legalized because it is a great experience. Like from what I removed, the humbling part was like the best part, but also just feeling as connected that there's something bigger than us, something that there's like a god or whatnot, like whatever you believe, you feel it. It's like, oh man, okay, cool, things are gonna be okay.
And you never thought like that before? You just thought...
No, because my whole life I was like, I'm never gonna do drugs, I'm never gonna do shit. And I got to 30 and I was like, oh, you know, I'm 30 now, what the hell am I gonna do drugs for? And then my friend was like, nah man, just give it a shot. And I was like, all right, cool. And then I was like, man, you're right, like never again. And if I do, it would have to be like super, like very well proportioned and stuff like that, and obviously like with something in my system. But man, changed the way I look at life. There's been a few moments in my life that I can remember, and that's one of them that like really changed the way I look at things, and more empathy and just humility.
So after that experience, what is something that you remember changing? Like, you know, I'm not gonna do this anymore.
Well, drugs, but just I can't pinpoint one exact particular thing that I took from it besides like the whole thing, but just when you see a person struggling and they might sometimes lash out at you, it made me feel like, well, I understand why you're lashing out.
Yeah.
Like even though they're doing something to you, I can see why. Like I can see more when a kid leaves me a mean comment on one of my random things, and it's like, are you really mad that I did this, or are you really mad that, you know, you're in a place in life that you're not happy with yet? You know, I wish I could just be like, yo, you're gonna get there, man. Yeah. And he'd be like, what? I just told you to go suck a dick. You know? Like, I'm like, no, I'm not, but I get what you're saying, bro. Like, I know that's not where you really mean. I know that it's kind of like your life sucks right this second, you know, but things will get better. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. I've been trying to navigate that way. Because in the past I would do it the complete opposite. You know, someone would leave a bad comment or something, and I would just attack them. And I would do the thing where I would post the screenshot and have all my people attack them. And I'm just like,
I always, when I was like younger, I was always tempted with that, you know, like to do it. And then I always was like, younger me was a little less humble. So it was more like, nah, I don't want this to get back at me. And then like people are going to look at me in a bad light. So it was like me. Now it's like, no, why would I do that to that person? You know, he doesn't have the platform or the potential to come back at me. Again, I think he's going through a moment. Yeah. It still hurts. It's still offensive. You know, like the reason I was on the keto diet was, again, I was making all those videos and I wasn't really taking care of myself. So I've never been a fat dude or anything like that, but I have like rounder cheeks if I like drink or if I'm not eating as healthy. Yeah. So kids would just be like, oh man, what happened to him? Look at fat ass. And then they would post pictures of me as the situation, you know, like there's a point where a situation went to jail and came out and he's like looking fat, and they would just always do that. So I was like, you know what, even though like it doesn't affect my day to day, it's like, you know, I just don't want to see it anymore. So I was like, I'll do something for my health, you know, and now thanks to them, I'm here, you know, I feel better. I think I look better. So it did help. But that's for someone that's well put together and knows like where they're at in life. If you're a poor kid and you're in the 5th grade and you're getting bullied every single day, you know, it's gonna hit different. You know what I mean? And I think that's what stems from like when I was really young, I got bullied. As I got a little older, I was more of a bully just to like retaliate. You know, like I wasn't picking on someone, but if someone did something to me, I was gonna come at you. And now it's like not worth it. Now it's like, what can I maybe do to help get that situation a little better? You know, like sometimes I'll just go add the person and talk shit. Just add them and just see what they're up to, and just like something. And chances are that they're low-key fans that might have gotten offended about something, or someone just doesn't fully understand you, or someone that just heard something else from someone, and then maybe you can, you know, like just by having a conversation, be like, oh, you know what? You're not as bad as someone says, you know?
Yeah, man. Crazy story, dude. I went to one of these old videos of Downstar that somebody did. And I read one of the comments, and it was like a real nasty comment. And I looked up the guy's name on Instagram. So it's like 3 years ago that he left the comment. And this just happened maybe like a month ago. So I looked up his name, and sure enough, it was the same on Instagram as YouTube. So I just went to one of his newest pictures and just liked his picture. And so weird, dude. Like 3 days later, I see that guy start following me. And then he makes a video about Downtime with Downstar and says like, yo, you guys got to check out this podcast that Downstar's doing, you know. And it's just, I don't know where that dude was in that place, and I don't know where I was 3 years ago or how I was representing myself. Maybe it wasn't in the most positive light, but me taking it that way instead of being negative and, you know, screenshotting and posting and tagging the guy and having people attack him, now he's turned into one of the supporters of the podcast, and that's dope, you know.
4 to 10 years ago, like in that window, was where I think the internet was a little more honest. Like if someone hated you, they hated you, they said it. Nowadays, you really don't know because a lot of kids know that a lot of people leave you a positive comment. So some of them will intentionally leave you a negative comment for you to just read that.
Yeah.
Oh, they call you fat. So then you go and you DM them like, what's up, man? And they're like, oh man, I just said that so you can I can get your attention.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to also like look at that. Like, you know, to us, it's almost like when there's a saying that my mom always says, is like, cuando tenés culo de paja. So it means like when your ass is made of straw, anything could catch fire, you know? So like if you feel guilty or a certain way about something and someone talks about it, you're like, oh my God, someone saw my tail or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to them, again, someone calling me fat, I was like, oh my God, maybe I am fat, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe he just said, you're fat and didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
But to you, it was offensive, you know? So then you work on it. Or again, you can just kind of reach out and be like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, oh, dude. No way. You know?
Yeah. So that was a really cool exchange, man. And ever since I've been thinking more positively and putting that energy out, dude, my life has changed completely, you know. And it just takes going down those dark roads and, you know, navigating in that negative way, because no matter how those situations ended up, at the end of the day, even if everybody was on my side, if that kid felt like shit, if he regretted it, I'm making the actions that I did make this person's life horrible. This person is having a bad day right now. And then they have to go home to their, who knows, their wife, their kids, their family. And then that's going to get spread to them just for me being an asshole.
Right.
You know, it's so easy for me just to ignore it.
Especially now with, again, what we're going through right this second. There's a documentary that I highly recommend everyone to watch. It's called I Am. It's by Tom Shadyac, and Tom was a producer for Dr. Dolittle, Ace Ventura, all this stuff. So he made close to like $80 million or something like that, right? And then he was riding his bike somewhere in this area, in like Calabasas, somewhere near here, and he just had an accident where he fell off his bike and hit his head, and he went to the hospital and he had amnesia for like a week. And then when he came out of the amnesia, he came out with like a kind of like a skewed perspective on things. And he just couldn't shake this feeling, like this cloudy feeling. And I've been there. Like when you get really knocked out, I sat at like a slight speech impediment for a while. The world was gray for a while. Like light would hurt. It's like serious. And down the road, I would like to get tested for CTE just because, you know, like concussions and stuff like that. But I do feel that sometimes like I am a little more emotional or a little more like I get a little more depressed sometimes. Yeah. Which I don't remember having that throughout my youth. So maybe there's a little bit of CTE there or something like that, but something to look into. But the whole point of his awakening was that when he came out of it and started feeling a little better, he wanted to kind of like basically give away all his money. Like obviously you would be like, oh man, this guy's crazy. But he wanted to do an experiment and find out what happiness is. Yeah. Right? So this documentary called I Am covers so many different subjects about happiness. But one of the biggest things that I took from it is they looked at people in America, and then they looked at people in South America, and then they looked at people in Africa and in China. And they try to see like who is the most happy. And what they ended up finding out was that a lot of the people that are the happiest are actually not the richest. Because let's take an example. Let's say it's raining and you're in a forest and you have nowhere to go and you're naked for some reason, right? So you're shivering cold and you just feel so alone. And somebody there has a house and they open the house and they welcome you in and they give you like a towel and they put you next to their fireplace. So when you were out in the forest, you were at a zero. You were like at a negative, right? You just felt so alone, so terrible. When they give you the clothes and the warmth, you're feeling like a 10. You know, you're feeling great, right? So then what do? So now you never want to be in that situation again. Yeah. So you go out and you try to get your own house. So now let's say the scale goes from 1 to 20, let's just say. So 0, you're in the forest. 10, you were in that person's house. Yeah. Now you go and you buy your own house. Yeah. So now you're at, let's say like a 15, right? Well, now you have the house. Well, now what do you want? Well, now you want another house. And now that you have the 2 houses, now you want a car. Yeah. And now you got another car, right? From that 0 to 10 was a huge gap. From that 10 to 15, there was another gap. But from that 15 to getting to 20, what you think you're going to do, those cars, those houses, everything will not do it. Because at the end of the day, all that stuff has value in numbers. And if you're interested in numbers, then your interests are going to be infinite because numbers never end. But if you only care about like what's immediately what you need, and it's the hierarchy of like needs, so you need like warmth and food and stuff like that. But after that, you don't really need all this stuff. You know, like I have friends that always tell me like, oh man, one day when I'm rich, I'm gonna do this, and that. And I'm like, to be honest, if you were rich, you would not be doing this, and that. Like you don't get rich by giving your money away. You get rich by like hoarding it and stuff like that, you know? But that's one of the bigger things that they talk about in this documentary. The other super crazy thing about it is that happiness and all that, like sadness, any emotion is really energy, right? So they did a couple of different experiments. One is like, all right, and this is something I've always focused on during my life, is like, if you're in your room here, like you and your boy, right, just hanging out. As soon as I walk in, I'm usually like very like greeting and like, hey, what's up? And I'm high energy. The energy in the room will literally change. Yeah. It's like in a classroom. That was my thing. Like when I would go into the classroom, I would like try and make people laugh. One time I got kicked out, almost suspended, because I ran as fast as I could. Yeah. Into the door and put my hand out and hit the door with like pretending to be my head, and I fell down. I was like, oh, and the teacher got so mad. But it was just like everybody laughed, you know, and I just brought that good energy. On the other token, when you go into a room and everyone's happy and you come in and you're just having a miserable day and you throw your backpack down and you kick something, you can literally feel the energy being sucked out, right? So they did a test. The guy, Tom, they put some electrodes to him, and then they put some electrodes to a little petri dish. Mm-hmm. And in that petri dish, there was just a little piece of yogurt. And yogurt has bacteria in it, right? Mm-hmm. So in those electrodes, they plug them in, and they have this the graph that's like going back and forth, and like you can see the different waves. And I forgot the exact like how many micro kilowatts it was going through, right? Yeah. So they're talking, and the little things like this is not really moving much, and they're asking him like, oh, like all these different questions, like, oh, what makes you happy? What makes you sad? None of it really matters. Then he looks at his phone, right? And it's going off, and he looks at it, and it's his lawyer. And you could tell that something happened, like this lawyer might have scammed him or done something. He gets mad. He just starts looking at the phone, and you see the thing going like this. The bacteria in the petri dish can feel the vibe that he put into the room. He can feel the energy, right? So this one is a little more far-fetched, but they took that experiment and then they started looking at things that happen in the world. Mm-hmm. So around the world, there's all these machines that they're random number generators. They're these supercomputers. And I think there's like 5 or 6 of them in the world. So these do the lottery, these do phone numbers, they do randomized numbers, right? So at any given point, all these are all separate. They have nothing to do with each other. And you can get printouts from them, and you can verify that all these random numbers are super random. There's no patterns. The theory is that when there's something super crazy in the world, super tumultuous, that it can affect the energy of the world. Yeah. Well, they were looking at all the numbers, and they've never seen anything like this. When they looked up the numbers for September 11th, all the random number generators, when they looked at the printouts, a lot of them had a lot of similarities, exact same numbers. So the theory is, and there's so much like heartache and so much like angst and like what we're going through right now. I bet you if they did this test, they'd probably find something similar, where all the energy of these people that are like bottled up or hurt or like lost family members or whatever, it's doing something that like you can literally feel like the heaviness of it. So, you know, when people say like we are human, we are beings of energy and stuff like that, and your energy, and like it sounds corny, but it's real. It's freaking real. You know what I mean?
No, definitely, dude. When did you start believing in this kind of these thoughts?
So I'm Hispanic, so like by nature, a lot of us are Catholic. So I've always been fearful of God, and like I've not been a good Catholic by any means, but I've always had that in the back of my mind. I don't literally like go out and Bible thump or preach or anything like that, but I do believe in God. I do believe that there's something bigger. I don't necessarily believe in like a lot of the stuff that's in the Bible necessarily, but you know, like religion in itself is a good, you know, it helps steer people. Like when you're lost, it feels good to feel like there's other people that are lost with you, you know, like misery does like company. Well, it's the same thing with religion. It's like, you want to all kind of feel like part of something, you know, but it's just, to me, it's very narcissistic for us to think that we're the best things on this universe. You know, we're the only ones that exist, you know? So I think there has to be something above us, you know, whether it is a deity, a god, an alien, whatever we want to, like, whatever you want to kind of like attribute it, there has to be something more than us, because everything is just too perfect. Like this just can't happen. Like it just doesn't naturally just like, oh, like, you know, it's cool to believe to an extent about the science, but then there's so much of the science that there's just no real proof. It's still going on faith, kind of like religion, so, I do have a scientific side and I do have a religious side. And then I do have this kind of like other, I guess like it's called spiritualness, where it's just kind of like, you do believe in the energy and the karma and the togetherness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when it happened, I would say more like in my mid-20s when I started like really kind of like starting to read more and just kind of like trying to find out who I am and what I do in this system and how do I belong,
Got you. I definitely want to touch on that subject, but before we get away from what you were saying about, being in the forest and being cold and being in a zero, I try to talk about that a lot as far as, like building your car. When I first got into the automotive community, when I would get a new air freshener, dude, I would put a new, I don't know if you're familiar with like the squash air freshener.
Yeah, I love those.
The squash.
The blue one, right?
Yeah. So when I would get my car, I would get a brand new one. I would put that in, dude. And I would literally drive just to like be in my car, get that smell and just have those feelings, right? So as the business started growing, as my opportunities started to grow and, I'm able to buy things that I wanted to buy for the car that I've always wanted when I was younger or early in my career. But what I can do right now will not give me the same joy that like that air freshener or, just switching out the springs to eBay springs just to lower the car. Those pleasures that I felt at that time, that happiness is so hard for me to replicate now when I can just buy all those things and put them on the car and go for a drive. It's not going to feel the same way that it did. So how I feel with like, money doesn't buy happiness. And I really feel so strongly about that because I'm at that point. I feel it. I've gotten to the point where I never thought I would be, where I can, relatively do whatever I want, buy whatever I want. And I thought like, this is going to be the ultimate happiness. I'm just going to have hella things, and it's not true, man. Those feelings that I've had back in the day where I was just learning and growing and, feeding my craft, it's so hard for me to get that feeling now.
Two things on that. Number one, they say money can't buy happiness, but have you ever seen anyone sad on a jet ski? That was a Danny McBride quote. It's like one of the best ones. No, but on that topic, the thing again is numbers infinite. And happiness in itself is fleeting. And what that really means is that, okay, there's water bottles over there, right? So as I go to reach for it, I basically know what's going to happen next. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to open it. I'm going to drink some of it, right? So from here to there, it's like your excitement is already building, right? Yeah. And in the moment you already grab it and put it into your mouth, it's like it's already going away. It's like as you're approaching the next stage, the next metric, the next whatever in your life, you almost already see it and taste it and feel it. And that's where the happiness is. But then once you grab it, not so much. I felt the same way, like growing up super poor. Like my mom and my brother and I, when I was 13 or 14 at this time, we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, all three of us. Like I lived in the living room. My mom and my brother slept in one room. My mom would get up. She would work 3 jobs. She would make pizza on the side and do all these things that now is the hustle that I have. Like I can't just have one thing. I have to have a lot going or else I just don't feel fulfilled, right? But I would ride my bike every day to school, 6 miles. Not because I couldn't take the bus, but because I just wanted to ride. And, it was cheaper. Then when I was 15, my mom was like, hey, when your dad died, he left us like older Mercedes Benz. Like, I can't teach you to drive because I don't know how to, but I think you can learn. So I literally went online and figured out how to drive. She took me around with like whatever she knew. She was like, this is the brake, this is the gas. You know, like I had to learn how to drive stick shift later on by myself. That was pretty hard too when you're 15, didn't know. But then after that, I drove me and my brother to high school every single day. And then to pay for gas, I had these 2 homies that were twins, Paul and Victor, and they would take the bus every day and they lived by my house. So I was like, hey, how much you guys pay for the bus? And they're like $1.80 each. And I was like, here, I'll pick you up from school and take you every day. But since I'm doing you the service of you get to listen to the music that you like and whatever, just give me $2.50 a day, each one of you guys. And they're like, oh, bet, we got you. So I would get like $5 a day because they were twins. So that was $25 a week. The Mercedes that my dad left us was like this 1978 300 CD. So it was a coupe turbo diesel. Yeah. And back in the day, back in our era, diesel was like 98 cents. It was cheaper than gas and lasted way longer. So those $25 lasted me probably like a week and a half. And then my brother and I would just go ride our, like, we would not steal the car because my mom knew that we were driving it. She had paid insurance for it and was registered, but I had no license. And from 15 to 18, I drove that car till the wheels almost fell off. Never got pulled over. On my 18th birthday, I decided to go get my driver's license. I got pulled over the next day. One of those things you're taking care of, you're watching. I guess once you got the license, you're like, yeah, now you can pull me over. But like you're saying, the replication of my happiness or anything like that at that time, like there's a million things I could do now, and it'll never feel as happy as like making it work. Just being like, okay, well, I got $3. Like literally one time coming to Ventura, no, Palmdale, way further. My brother and I took that Mercedes. We ran out of gas. We had not $1 left. And on my YouTube videos now, I have a lot of hack videos. A lot of the hacks are because I literally had no money and I had to figure out how to do things. So 2 of the hacks that my brother and I came up with when we were younger, not super proud of them, but when you're a little kid. Number 1, if you go to College Junior and you get a Famous Star, at the time it was 99 cents. And if you go through the garbage, you can find a cup and just wash it out and just put ice and get drinks. So for $2, my brother and I would eat lunch. And then when we were out in Palmdale, we ran out of gas at the gas station. So we literally just came up to people and like, hey, look, we're not like poor, but we just don't have any gas money. And people gave us ended up giving us like 10 or 15 bucks to make it home. And diesel, it lasted. So, it's one of those things you kind of have to like sometimes figure out on your own. And, now, I don't think about running out of gas or anything like that. But there's a part of me that remembers all of that. So I'll never not be hungry. I'll never not want that work ethic because I never want to lose whatever it is that I'm at in life. And not so much about the money thing, but just that desire to like keep going and always being hungry, because the day you like stop and look around and pat yourself on the back and just like, oh man, I really did it, is the day that you're going to lose it, because you're going to lose that hunger. You're going to lose whatever it was that made you who you are that day. You know what I mean?
Okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors and we'll be back in 1 minute. We all know that there's tons of places you can buy your car parts at, but when you really need help, who's in your corner? When you need parts for your Honda, you need to visit HeelToeAuto.com. Since 2002, Heel-Toe has built a reputation for service and support. Let me repeat that, guys. Since 2002. It's 2020 right now. That's a long time of experience, man. These social media slingers and copycat web stores can't match Heel-Toe's professionalism. Heel-Toe even offers a complete OEM store for all your genuine parts needs. Whether it's for show, race, or just a badass daily, remember that HeelToeAuto.com is in your corner. And guys, if you're on Instagram, make sure you check them out at Heel-Toe Automotive. Please go to their page right now, add them, and comment that you heard them on Downtime with Downstar podcast. Next up is Downstar. Downstar is the premium leader in dress-up hardware and engine bay accessories. We have all the nuts and bolts for all your screwing and nutting needs. From engine kits, transmission kits, mount kits, clutch lines, brake kits, t-shirts, skateboards, hats, lighters. Damn, we got it all. We actually have too much, guys. So if you can, please come over and buy some stuff at downstaring.com or check us out at Instagram at Downstar. Make sure you give us a follow. Now, back to the show. Yeah. When is the last time that you experienced that sort of happiness maybe that you would have felt when you were younger?
I mean, it's hard to relate on like a number basis, but I mean, sometimes the simplest things, just getting together with my friends, or just like my girlfriend and I love going to Boiling Crab.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Just makes me super happy. Me and her just hanging out, just eating crawfish and shrimp makes me super happy. Hanging out with Man Cobra, just like FaceTiming him and just talking about some of the dumb stuff we've done throughout our lives and how we're still alive. Because I could have a whole like podcast series on how me and Johnny like been to jail and do all those crazy things, just like trying to have a fun time and just turn into some crazy movie, but I think it's also because like I stayed, like a part of me continues to like want success, and then a part of me also wants to stay grounded and just like remember who I am, remember where I came from. When I get an opportunity, I still reach out to my coach from when I was in Watts at this school called San Miguel, and I'll go and like talk to the kids in that area and like, tell them that like statistically speaking, we're not supposed to be here. Like when you come from such a terrible area where at one point they did this thing called the 100 Nights where they killed 100 people, one person per day because of gang war. And I literally grew up in that area where like when my brother was 11 or 10, he saw one of our friends get shot in the head with a shotgun. And I told him, first off, like he wasn't supposed to be out. I knew when there was gonna be a drive-by in the area. You knew there was like a weird vibe in the crowd and like the neighborhood. We were never like homies with the gang, but it's just one of those things. Like if you're out there riding your bike and like hanging out with your friends, you're gonna know one of them. They're gonna be kind of cool with you because they're trying to get you into the gang. And I told him like, oh, I feel like the block's hot this week. You should probably chill. And he was out there riding a scooter, and then I remember like it's another one of those vivid memories where you can like see and hear everything, but. Yeah. I just remember the brakes like squealing on a car, and then a girl screams like, "Oh my God!" And then you hear the click, click, and then you hear, and the dude's brain like splattered into the garage, and my brother was just there like pale, because I ran out, and I remember my friend was randomly eating chili mangoes, and we're both running to the front to see what happened, and my brother's there pale, and I see the dudes in the car getting away, and I told my brother like, "Don't say anything when the cops come," and as soon as the cop comes, my brother's like, "I saw it all." So they take him in and make him like ID people and stuff. Like, shit. It was crazy. So imagine growing up in that, and then your dad dies. Fuck. And then my mom doesn't speak English, doesn't have a job in America, doesn't know how to drive. All she knows how to do is just work hard. So she did whatever she could. She cleaned houses. Like I said, she made pizza. She worked for this terrible printing company that made her, you know, like when you get that junk mail, she assembled all the junk mail. These machines with the conveyors would like print all this stuff. So she would work from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., get home just to make breakfast for us, send us to school with whatever little money she had. She paid for private school for me and my brother so that we weren't in like the shittiest school in that area. And then sleep for a few hours, go and volunteer at the parish to get a discount for our education. Like if you do some certain hours, it would knock off some of the tab. Come back, take another nap, make pizzas during the day, and then my brother and I would deliver them at night. So that's where like my hustle comes from. That's my hustle, and then my brother's hustle. He's the same thing. Like whatever I've done in the BMX world, my brother is replicated now in the car world. Like he just works his ass off, figures everything out on his own. Now he's like working on Lamborghinis and Ferraris and all that other cool stuff, you know?
Yeah, let's get into that, dude. Was speaking of Christian again, he mentioned that your brother is Man Cobra on Instagram, Johnny. And then I just remember, I was like, oh, that's crazy because he's working with Sheepy at this time.
Right.
So I remember seeing when he started working with Sheepy, and I'm just like, because he doesn't look like somebody that's in the car industry.
So you want to hear something growing up was that my brother was like we're very similar, and we're only 2 years apart. So we used to hang out together, ride BMX together, do everything together, right? But then he deviated more into the music world, and he really liked the rock. Like if you see my brother's Instagram, he looks like a rock star. Like originally,
like a Ramon.
He looked like now because of his blonde hair, but when he had like black gigantic hair, he looked like Nikki Sixx. Or he looked like more like someone straight up from Motley Crue, you know? Yeah. And growing up, like I had like the following because of BMX and like people knew who I was. But my brother was always the rock star, but he had no clout. You know, like everybody would be like, "Damn, your brother's that rock star, dude." Also, my brother partied like one. Like, so there's this pro skateboarder named, and you're into skate, right?
Yeah.
So Braden Safransky.
Okay.
So he's sponsored by Death Wish. Death Wish is notorious for being like the crazy party team. You know? Yeah. And I became friends with Braden, and that dude parties. And one day, my brother Braden was like, "I partied with your brother yesterday." He's like, "I partied in my day, but your brother parties."
No shit.
So that's like a thing. That's like that's a good thing and a bad thing. You know, like he's a good time, but he's always had this like larger than life personality. He's like, if you get to meet my brother, he's hilarious.
Really?
He's a funny ass dude. And then him and I together is really funny, but that's where we get into trouble.
Yeah.
Because like we start pushing the envelope and doing crazy things, just trying to be funny. And then we have this other friend named Casey. And when we used to all hang out together, it was like Adam, my brother, myself, and Casey. And we're all blasted and have like, you know, we just look different, right?
Yeah.
And people come and ask us if we're in a band, or people just straight up lie. They'll come up and like, "I love your guys' band, man." They take pictures with us. Like, it's pretty funny. But my friend Casey, Adam used to call him Stock Kid because he was the only one that had no tattoos, no nothing. He was just a stock car. He called him Stock Kid. I thought it was hilarious. So we would go out, and like one of the last times I went out like hard with my brother, he ended up punting a mirror off of a Uber with that guy Casey. And I'll never forget, I'm in court and they're reading out like the deposition.
Yeah.
And it goes, "Mr. John Mancuso punts said mirror." And then in the actual, this is written out. It says, "Mr. Paramore holds up the field goal." So like my brother punted it and it went like, he was like, it's good. You know what I mean? Like, oh man. But yeah. And so I'll tell you that story. I guess I'll finish that story. Mirror goes flying. Dude, owner of Uber, is inside of KFC or no, Popeyes on Hollywood Boulevard. He runs out and sees what my brother did. He's like, you asshole, whatever. Excuse me. My brother is pretty intoxicated at this point. So is Casey. And my brother starts running for it. Now, my brother's like 6'1", 6'2", something like that. Bigger dude. I'm 5'9".
Yeah.
And my brother is not athletic at all. He can barely do a jumpy jack, but he runs for his life. And the guy's chasing him. And it's your blood. You know, you're not going to let some dude, you know. So the guy's like, I'm going to kick the crap out of you, blah, blah, blah. And my brother's like, no, man, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, and the dude is ready, like, cocked to fucking hit him. So I was like, oh, hell no. So I run as fast as I could, and I deck dude. Mm-hmm. And he just knocked out cold. There's a cop right there.
Oh, no.
I look at my brother, and I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. You're not athletic. And he runs for it. I was like, oh, my God, no. Now we're running from the cops. So we run. I hit a left. I could have easily gotten away. Yeah. The cop that was chasing me was not fast. I would have gotten away. I look over. My brother's already on his knees. Like, he's taking his belt off. And that's how we went to jail for the very first time.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so shout out to Mancobra.
That's dope.
Mancobra has given me many milestones in my life. Never have I gotten a bad grade in school until my brother copied off my test.
Yeah.
Didn't even change. Like, it was like an assignment, right?
Yeah.
So he was like, I need some help, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, dude. I'll give you this assignment. I'm going to change it a lot.
Yeah.
But you still have to read it and change it some more. So it just looks like even like my paper was already an A paper. His that I gave him was like a B minus. He just had to change a couple more things.
Yeah.
He submitted it without changing my name. So the teacher was like, you idiot. So I ended up getting a F on that paper because he knew I cheated, which ended up giving me my first bad grade in all of school in college because of him. And then I also went to jail because of him. Yeah, so
Shout out to him, man.
but
yeah, I started I started seeing him pop up on Sheepy's feed and looking at him like, wow, this looks like a guy more that I would see at Warped Tour when I would go to Warped Tour, you know?
We would go places and people would like stop him more than like some of my more popular friends. They'd be like, oh, dude, what's up? Can I get a photo with you? And he's like, oh, I don't know, man, not today. Like, he just played it off so well.
That's dope, man. So then he's working on the Lambos,
right.
And he's actually busting them down like the motors.
Oh,
and
no,
that was
so
super impressive to me.
So I think my brother, without no influence to him, he's like I don't know if I can say it, but it's an autistic savant. Like there's just the R word, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He like at some things when he doesn't care, you're like, this guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
But when he cares, he's like a genius.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When after the whole thing, like probably like 14, 15 after high school, like not after high school, but after I stopped driving that Mercedes, I saved up enough money and we bought this little BMW. And we were driving it to school one day, and to this day, I've been driving 17, almost 18 years I've been driving. I've only been at one at-fault car accident, and it's this one. We were driving to school one morning, and I must have been closer to 18. I had already turned 18 because I remember I had my license because I remember I told you it was like all throughout that I was riding dirty. Yeah. So I had my license, and there's these two lights that are very close to each other, and they are synchronized, right? So as we're going through the first, it's green turning yellow, and the second one is yellow about to turn red. But the lady in front of us, when she crossed the first one, she thought that one was red, so she slams on the brakes. And I'm coming in thinking, okay, like that lady's gonna keep going. Slam on the brakes, slide into her, bust the E36, gone. And again, super poor. Yeah. I only had liability insurance. I didn't even know how insurance worked. When I called them and I was like, hey, yo, like, I had a car accident. Like, you guys gonna fix this, right? They're like, what? No, you got liability. We're only paying for their stuff. You're done. And I was like, done? They're like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. So I told my brother, like, what are we gonna do? You know, and he's like, we'll check eBay. You know, we started looking eBay because he and I were already very well versed with eBay because we would buy and sell all of our BMX parts to make money to basically buy a better bike, you know? And we bought the headlights. He figured out the bumper support, the bumper cover, all the things we needed. And I was like, well, what do we do with it now? And there had been this mechanic that had been our family mechanic since my dad had that Mercedes. So he helped us a lot with stuff. His name was Stefan. And my brother really looked up to this dude. And this dude was a badass Mercedes mechanic, except that he had a drinking problem. So my dad, I think, was like almost like a sponsor to him and helped him out. And since then, he had quit drinking. But you could still tell like he had like the withdrawals because he would be working on something. He would get the shakes and whatnot. I remember that. And I think my brother just kind of like something in that dude resonated in my brother, and like that kind of got him into wrenching. And then before I realized it, like I really focused solely on BMX. And I think my brother just got fully into cars and just started working on them. And then I remember him, like, he had this badass white E36 M3 at the time. It was a 95 one. He had like the carbon fiber hood, carbon fiber trunk, like, he had the whole thing. And in the forum world, he was known as Johnny Scene.
Okay.
Because he was a scenester. He was like super, scene is like slang for emo, which is like, you know, obviously emo, everyone knows what. So he started getting bigger in the forums, like just buying and selling parts. Just everybody knew who he was, like in our little area. And then I ended up buying, which is funny because like later on in life, I found like this photo bucket. And when I logged into it, I saw a picture of the car that I bought. And I didn't even realize that, like, when I was a little kid, I wished I could buy this car.
Yeah.
But when I turned pro for DC Shoes, like, we ended up getting like a nice little bonus. So I ended up putting that, and like I was also like had an eBay store at that time selling bike parts and selling a crap load with my friend Fu from Epic BMX, which is in Westminster, like Huntington Beach. And he used to be big in the JDM world too. Maybe you guys know each other, but I'll have to introduce you guys later. Through that eBay store and DC Shoes and everything I was doing, all these hustles, I saved up enough money and I bought an E46 M3.
Okay.
So this is 2000. So mine was in 2003, and it must have been like 2006, 2007, you know, around that time. So still fairly new. It was still the most recent one. No, sorry. Yeah. It was right before the E92 came out. So I still had the E46. Laguna Seca M3.
Ooh.
And I got gold BBS LSs.
Yeah.
So it was sick. And then I had a fat DC Shoes sticker on it. So people used to always know, like, when I was coming around. And I had a bike rack on it.
Yeah.
I remember I would go to house parties with my friends that lived in East LA. And at night we'd get pulled over by cops. And I was like, oh, fuck, they're going to come, like, bust us for... And at the time, I didn't drink. So I didn't know what they were going to bust us for. But they were all like, oh, they're going to bust us. And most of the time, it was, like, to come talk about the car. Like,
really?
Damn, this is badass.
Sick.
Like, because, like, my friend Casey, the guy that was there that night that went to jail, he had this little side hustle where he would take people's wheels and refurbish them, like really do a good job and like polish the lips, get all the bolts chromed and just make them look badass. So I remember we painted them Sahara gold, we polished lips, and then I think it was like Nito P0 tires. Like, it looks badass.
Yeah.
And then we went to South America because my mom every few years would like to go visit our family. So when my brother was working at this like Mini Cooper shop, somebody came one night and stole the wheels off the car. I was so devastated because, you know, LSs were expensive back then. I'm sure they're still expensive. Like any BBS product is still probably expensive. And I was gutted. But yeah, like I said, I was so focused on BMX, I didn't even notice that at the same time he was like getting pretty well known in the car world. Like he went from like working, he had this like window, he would like clean windows like for rich people, like during the day, and then at night he would wrench on people's cars like as a side hustle. Then one day he decided he was going to do it full time from the house. Then one day he got an opportunity to work for like an independent mini works. It was called Mini Works. So they would work on minis and BMWs. And then from there, he conned me into thinking like, oh, let's start our own shop. And I was like, all right, cool. So we started this shop called European Union. And that lasted for like 2.5, almost 3 years. And that didn't go so well. Especially like from my end, where it was just like I wasn't so involved in the business. I was just kind of like the financial backer and just putting money out but never seeing anything in return. I was like, oh. And then he got the opportunity with Sheepy, went there, and then from there he had another even better opportunity, and him and Alex are super cool. And like I talk to Alex all the time. I help them a lot of stuff.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. So I help them with their merch.
Gotcha.
Obviously with OSS, I have like a lot of good connections, so I help them as much as I can, and they're killing it right now. Like, Sheepy's doing real good. So I know they're cool. And now he's in Florida working for 316 Speed, which I'm going to go fly out there pretty soon. Like once this is all over, hopefully fly out there. So not pretty soon, but when it's over, and help them with like what I can with like branding, merch and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
So
dude,
kind of comes full circle. You know what I mean? Like the same people that we know in the and my brother and I knew in the BMX world coming up now are popular in the car world. There's like a lot of dudes that I remember were former bike riders. You know, Adam LZ's one of our close friends. My homie Caleb Quambeck is like really dope. My manager at DC Shoes, the guy that turned me pro for DC Shoes, is Mike Allen, and now he's the vice president at Hoonigan. So just one of those things, like as you like go through this life, as long as you're not burning bridges, a lot of the people you met earlier on now are like, oh man, here's like the key to the bridge, you can cross it. Yeah. But if you burn the bridges, now here's no key to the bridge, now you're stuck. You know what I mean? So
it is crazy, man, with like alternative sports such as skateboarding, biking, and things like that. It's really culture based, and those cultures always seem to blend over into the automotive community. And you see a lot of ex skaters, you know, they're doing car stuff.
Well, one of the dudes I looked up to, like when I got the opportunity to ride for DC, was Josh Kalis.
Yeah.
Josh Kalis always had badass M3s, and then later he started doing I can't even think of the name right now. It was a page, it was a car page. I forgot what it was called. Him and a bunch of his boys. This is like in the early 2000s.
Okay.
It was something Heliclips. Do you know what Heliclips is?
No.
Oh, you should check it out. It was like a skate, and I think it has something to do with the car world. But essentially, they were some of the first people to figure out. And then with Brian Scotto from Hoonigan, they all figured out this loop system where if you have popular content and you send it to me, right, and then I send it to another homie, and we all share it at the same time, well, they would trick the Facebook algorithm to make it viral.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So Heliclips is one of the sites, and I forgot all the other ones, and Hoonigan was one of them. They all used to work together as a network to get this content to go viral and make pretty good revenue off that stuff. I think girls now do it too. Like, I know that hot chicks all work together. Like, they'll like, okay, at 5 p.m. I'm posting my picture. Make sure you guys all comment on it. Yeah. So they all comment. So their comments will stay posted. So it's pretty smart when people like figure out those kind of like little loopholes, you know?
Yeah. You just have to find people that are like-minded.
Right.
And
that aren't too like greedy.
Yeah.
That are willing
in the
to share
automotive
something.
community, it's real hard
Right.
to do that because a lot of the guys that are doing things like that are the younger generation.
Right.
And it's really hard to get tapped into them because especially me being an older guy, you know, but I've managed to get build a relationship with some of the younger popular YouTube guys, and it definitely helps out, man. And I look at them as inspiration. You know, I never look at people like, yo, I'm older, I've been in this longer, you don't know anything. I know that this is a new time and this is their time. Right. And if I want to stay relevant, I have to see what they're doing and, you know, just try to build my platform like that as well. And it's definitely helped out a lot versus a lot of the older guys that are just stuck in their mentality where they're doing it right and the new guys are just, I don't know what this YouTube stuff is. And when the guys tell me that, I'm like, bro, you're missing the boat right now.
Yeah, because I think we're in the middle generation.
Yeah.
You know, because we're not quite in the old one and we're not quite in the young one, but we get to see, and you get to play kind of both fields, you know, because we're the same way in BMX. It's a very small niche, but a lot of the dudes that run it, some of them are stuck in like the old ways. Some of them are a little more up on the avant-garde, you know, but it just depends on like how you relate with every aspect of your inner community, you know, like you said, if you're cool with the younger kids, at some point there's going to be something that they're into that you posted and vice versa, so you'll find that like common ground and, you know, help each other. Yeah. And that's how a community is built. But oftentimes, like I experience in BMX, is a lot of the older heads or just people that like are bitter or angry or whatever, they're just like, no. And I think that's just the wrong way to go about it. Like, you know, like there's people that you might not necessarily get along with, but at some point you have to bury that hatchet if you want to be successful, you know, not just because you're like, oh, I see how I can profit off of this, but it just doesn't feel good to have like animosity with someone or something like that. Like, and at the end of the day, if you do have animosity with someone, it's usually someone you know and someone that you might have like wronged or they wronged you, but it's because like at some point you guys were close. And I feel like that's when someone hurts you, is like when they're the closest, you know? Yeah,
when you get the emotions involved. And that's pretty much the only time that I get upset is when my feelings get hurt, right. You know? And that'll manifest into, you know, I don't fuck with that car company, that vlogger, whoever or whatever. And then, you know, you talk about the story to somebody else and to them it doesn't, well, I mean, that's not that big of a deal. But then you have to like check yourself, like, you know, I can't let my feelings get in the way of this, because if people know the feelings that I have and what triggers me, then that gives them the power to use that against me or whatever. So if you just like, you know, remain cool with everybody, you know, don't put out any bad blood, even if you don't deal with this certain person, I would say, you know what, I wish you the best, but right now our paths aren't on the same road. They used to be before, but not anymore.
I mean, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's kind of like just like the wavelength, you know, like it sounds corny to say sometimes, but it does feel that way, where right now, again, because of where we're at, you know, a lot of people are a little more open to kind of like burying that hatchet or talking about it, because we're all going through this thing together, you know, so it is building that sense of community. But I just hope that when we get out of it, it's not like, oh, that was nothing, man. Like, you ever feel like that when you apologize to someone and you're like, all right, man, I hope like what we just did in private goes out in public. I hope you don't turn around and be like, nah, that guy apologized to me. He's a bitch. You know, like,
Yeah.
but it could. I mean, they could say that, but it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
I've had that happen too.
I bet.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
of course.
it's just more of the apology and making things right is kind of taking things off of my shoulders.
Right. Yeah.
You know, whatever happened, our exchange, if things didn't work out right, you know, I apologize that things went the way that it went. That doesn't mean you're wrong and I'm right, or vice versa. It just means, yo, let's just get past this, you know? And I love to have those conversations, but then you can almost tell that didn't fix it. Sometimes it takes a little more, but as long as you get it off of your shoulders, you know, I did the best that I could, and that I'm good with that.
There's a harsh saying that says that you can't fix broken glass. You know, like once it cracks, it's kind of over. But that doesn't mean you can't like eventually mend these relationships to an extent that it's still amicable, and at least it's not awkward when you see someone. Because at the end of the day, everything we do, it's a smaller world than we all think.
Yeah.
You know, like you're gonna run into that person, and what's the point? You know, like at that point, it's just like you see him, like dab it up, keep it moving. You know.
Yeah.
If you guys really don't like each other that much, if not, you'll remember the good times when you guys were, you know, coming up together, grinding together.
Yeah.
You know, it's cool to have that. But yeah, we change, different wavelengths, different things in life. Like I think that almost like every 2-3 years, I look back at who I was then, and I'm like, oh man, I wasn't exactly happy with who I was then, you know, but I'm building towards something better. And like 6 years before that, I was not as happy. You know what I mean? So you got to keep trying to build towards something. I think that's the whole point of our existence, is to kind of go throughout this life and just acquire as much information, as much like experience, and just build like an arsenal of like information, experience to then pass down, whether it is to your kids or to the next generation or whatever. Let them learn from your mistakes, let them learn from your successes. And, you know, I think that will build a better world, you know, a better future.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. So let's go ahead and get into the your biking career.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me where that all started at?
So my brother and I were watching X Games, and I remember my friend had already, like my neighbor. So there's a church here, and then we were 2 houses over from the church. Okay. So that's where I lived. And then across the street from us was the parish. So that's like when you live in a Catholic area, the parish was like the cafeteria and where the priests live and all this other stuff. Then across from that was the school I went to. And then to my left was my best friend's house. And then one street, like literally the street. And then the next house over was my other best friend. Okay. So we all lived there. So it was my brother, this kid Alex, and this kid Jesse. And we would all ride like our bikes around. They weren't BMX bikes yet. I mean, they were just like little scrappy bikes, right? And my dad would always take us on these bike rides on the weekends. And I had like this little mountain bike that he had bought me. And then one year we were talking to my friends, and we're like, oh man, we saw this thing called the X Games, man. It's so sick. Like we should try it. So they started like hopping around on their bikes, and they had, you know, like when you have no money and then like your neighbor has a little more money, they were the rich neighbors.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, man, they were rich, man. Their dad bought them a brand new GT. Well, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Literally, like one of the first bikes we got was like this crackhead had literally stolen like a dyno. He sold it to my dad for $20. So my dad got it to us, and like I would ride this little dyno, but it was like a dyno blaze, which if you know about bikes, it's for girls. So a top tube, you know, on your bike. The top tube was angled down.
Oh, gotcha.
Usually that means it's like for girls. So I would ride that, and I was kind of embarrassed, but it was like whatever. It was like my first little bike I could jump on. And later on, my dad saved up, and we went to Toys R Us, and he bought me this bike called the Royce Union, which I think we might still have it somewhere. Like just we kept it with my brother. But it was like this clunky, super heavy Toys R Us bike. And I remember riding that thing like it was like the best, like the Ferrari of bikes, you know, just ride around. And I would keep it nice and chrome, and I would go home and Windex everything, just, you know, like when you're a little kid. And then I remember building a little ramp and whatnot. And then my dad died. So then I just basically threw the bike away. I was like, not away, but I was like, I'm never going to ride this thing again. And then I don't know what sparked it, but at some point I was like, you know what? I remember my dad used to take me every Saturday in the morning with my brother to go around the neighborhood. So I was like, fine, I'll pick it back up. So I started picking it back up. And then I started really getting into it. And then I remember the X Games, it was like 1 year after the first X Games I kind of seen. And I saw Dave Mira. And he had just done a double backflip. And I was like, holy crap, that guy went upside down on his bike. This is the craziest thing ever. He rides this thing called a Hero. And I was like, what the heck is a Hero? You know, like this isn't that. Yeah. So later on, I was like, oh, Haro. Oh, okay. You know, it's one of those things when you like, if you don't hear someone say it and like you're Hispanic or you just speak another language, you just whatever makes sense in your head. So I was like a hero, you know. But so we ended up going on eBay and we saw like the bike that we were like, all right, I gotta buy one of these, and I bought a Haro back trail. Mm-hmm. So if you know much about Haro or BMX in around like the late 90s, early 2000s, it was Dave Mira and Ryan Nyquist. Those were like the two dudes, you know. And they were kind of like at the time bumpy heads. They were best friends, but then they became a little bit of enemies and whatnot. So I ended up getting the back trail because it was a cheaper one on eBay. It was a back trail X2. And it was like this really cool blue, and it came with these handlebars called the sledgehammer bars, which I thought was super like smart and like funny. And so that was my first BMX bike. Then we saved up after buying and selling parts on eBay. Like we would basically, it was fraud because we would like pretend we were my mom. We would take her credit cards. And we knew she had like $40 in there, right? So I'll be like, hey, Mom, I'm going to borrow the 40. But she didn't know what was going on. She's like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, I'm going to buy something online or whatever. You know what? I lied. It wasn't even credit cards yet. It was a check. Oh, shit. I had to write a check and pretend it was my mom's.
Wow.
And I sent it to this dude, and then we bought this bike for my brother. It was a Dave Mira. It was a cherry red flare. So those are the two bikes that we had. My brother ended up riding that bike. I don't even know how long. Oh, sorry. He bought a blue flare. Mm-hmm. That one, I don't know how long he rode it for. Maybe like a week, and he got pistol whipped and jacked.
No way.
Yeah, so that sucked. So then we sold and bought more parts until we could save up enough money to buy him another one. So we bought him. That's the red one. So those are the two bikes that we had. So we were riding around, and like if you really know about BMX and you know that those were just kind of like complete bikes, that's like when you start with. That's not really what you like get down on. Yeah. That's just kind of like what you learn on. So for our age, for our group, it was fine, you know. So we started learning with that. And then I went into high school, and then my friends and I started kind of like separating because I went to a Catholic school called Verbum Dei. My brother was still in middle school. And then my two friends ended up going to like this school called Jordan, which was like the worst school ever. Like, like to this day, I don't know how they made it out of there. Cause man, it was like literally like drug dealing in the cafeteria. Like it's crazy. And it's right next to the projects. Like we lived really close to all the different projects. And like one street was Grape Street. One street was like Colonia Watts, which is like the Hispanic gangbangers. Another street was the Pyrus. Like it was like all the crazy gangs were there. So we had to take special like routes in order to avoid them. So you don't get banged on or you don't get jacked like my brother did because he didn't know better. So we go down the wrong block and get pistol whipped and jacked. You know?
How old was he at that time?
10. Yeah.
God,
yeah.
damn.
11. Yeah. Something like that. So my mom, like after my first year at that school, it was an all guy school. It was Catholic, and you had nothing to do but study. So I was a straight A student, and I would ride BMX with my homies on the side. And my homie would steal his truck from his mom, and she would drive us from Watts to Paramount to go ride this skate park out there. It's called the Village. Super fun. And I was like, because my dad died, I didn't know what else to put all my energy and all my heart into. So I was like, you know what, I'm going balls deep into BMX. So I would just like ride every single day and try and get as good as I could. Not even because I thought I was going to turn pro. I just wanted to be really good. And I would have lists of all the tricks I was going to learn, like feeble, Smith, bar spin feeble, bar spin.
Yeah.
Like, do every combination, every try I could, you know? And my friend, like, he wasn't very good at BMX. And you could tell his mom, like made decent money. So she would buy him BMX stuff, but he wasn't really into it. He was just like a casual fan that just like, and he was like a bigger dude. But he loved just taking me to the skate park and watching me ride. And he would try to ride a little bit. And it was super fun. And then he basically, like, I didn't even realize, like, we weren't really ditching school because, like, we were both, like, really good students. So we can kind of, like, at that school, it's kind of lax. Like, you can kind of just take off. So we would finish our stuff and just literally go to the skate park. And it's crazy. I haven't even thought about these memories in so long. And I remember, again, I'm in an all-guy school. So I really didn't have that many interactions with girls yet. Like I didn't really know. And I remember I was at the skate park and, like, I met some girl and I started talking to her and I was like, man, like talking to girls is not as hard as I thought. Like you just talk to them like they're like a guy, you know, like, and me and that girl ended up making out in the car later. Like, I don't even know how it happened. That same day, like it just clicked. I was like, oh, maybe I'm good at this. You know, it's that saying, like, if you fake it till you make it. Well, I think I told her I was good. I don't know, good at biking or something. And I ended up making out there and that was it. Like, never saw her again. There was no cell phones at the time. So I didn't even bother trying to take a number down. And then that same skate park, you know what's crazy? I ended up getting catfished by a girl there. Listen, I met a girl on the AOL chat room. I'm really dating myself here. Fucking door goes, like you sign in. And she sent me this picture, and this girl was way too hot. Keep in mind, I'm a Hispanic dude that grew up in an all Hispanic and black area. I had never even seen a white girl yet in my life. And in this picture, she was like this cute blonde or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, excited to get home after school every day so I can message her when I got there, dial up, like, all that funny stuff that people don't even know about. So I'm like IMing her or whatever, and it's like the typical ASL. Remember that?
Yeah.
Age, sex, location. Yeah. So she was like 15, like, or no, she was 16 because I think I was 17. It was like right there. She was like 15, La Habra, blah, 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 and female. And I was like, oh, man. I told her I was like in Paramount. So like that city. Because if I told her Watts, I was like, she's going to be afraid or something. Yeah. And we talked for a year, like a whole year. So I must have been like 16 and a half. And I turned 17 and a half right before I met her. And I remember we like decided to link up at that skate park. And when she showed up, man, damn, she was big. Big girl. And I'm like looking at the picture. I'm looking at her. I was like, this isn't it. I printed it out, man. I kept it. I was like, oh, this can't be right. Yeah, man. And she comes up. She's like, hey, I'm Jacqueline. I was like, oh, my God. I was like, this is not what I signed up for. Still made out with her. Whatever. Like I was a kid. It's whatever. But we ended up becoming cool. And I was like, yeah, you really played me. And like this catfish hadn't existed yet. So you just call it getting played. And like there's a meme now. And if you saw it, there's like this like black dude, and he's chilling with like this huge black girl, and he's like, I got catfish, but she had good weed though. I felt kind of like him, no weed, but it just felt like that. But I don't even know how I got on that dumb story. But anyways, so started getting better and better at BMX, and then this is a funny story, and this story I told in another podcast, so I'll give you like the condensed version, so you guys can go check out that other podcast. It's on the No Jumper channel. Essentially, when I was at a skate park, I could do backflips. And again, super poor, did not have access to like foam pits or anything like that. My brother and I were just pedaling around this neighborhood in Lakewood one time. We went all the way to Cypress. There was these dirt jumps. I threw some cushion into the middle of the dirt jump, and I decided to learn backflips there. Oh, shit. And I got really, really close, and I was like, I think I could do this. So then finally, one of my friends, Gary Regano, his dad took us to a skate park that had a foam pit. And I was like, everybody's afraid of it. And I was like, what? I tried to do this shit basically in dirt. So I was like, I can do this easy. I think 3 or 4 tries. I did it back.
No way.
Perfect. So I was like, all right, cool. So I tell my brother, I'm like, we had this old camcorder. He was like, all right, man, you go for it. And we're at the skate park called Carruthers in Bellflower, and I'll never forget. So it's a bowl that goes up. So the bowl starts going down, has a little tiny lump, and then the transition, and there's a little bit of cement, and then it goes into like just dirt and like a little bit of grass. And I was like, I'm gonna try backflip into this. And I did the lowest backflip you can get away with without hitting your head on the coping. Like I just barely got it. And I did it. Perfect. Whoa. Like I don't remember exactly if it was like the first try or the second try, but within 1 or 2 tries I did it. So I was like, hell yeah. So then they knew me as like the backflip kid. And I was like, do the backflip. And I was like, backflip. I must have been like I said, 17. It was right around the time when I met that girl, that catfish.
Got you.
So there's this dude at the skate park that I had seen him a couple times. And then I had seen some pros, and I was like, oh, there's the pros. You can't go up to them, can't talk to them, don't look at them. They'll know you suck. Yeah. But I can do a backflip. So I was like, oh, I got something on them, maybe. Because at the time, not a lot of people were doing the backflips and stuff like that. So I'm riding, and I was like, all right, it's time to whip out the backflip. And I did a real good one. And this guy, he's probably 45 or 50. He comes up to me, he's like, hey, man, I'm Bobby Brown. And I was like, Bobby Brown, and he goes, not that one. And I was like, okay. He's like, look, dude, I think you got what it takes. And I was like, serious? Imagine being like some little kid from like impoverished area, and someone tells you got what it takes. You're like, oh, what do I do? Where do I sign? So this dude is like, I'm gonna take you under my wing. So essentially, this con man, for probably 2 years, something like that, he basically made me do all these stunt shows for free, and he would collect like $500 or $700, something like that per show. Never give me anything. Told this company called Access Bikes that he had this dude that could ride pretty good. They would give him bikes. He would give me some of the parts from the bikes, and then he would sell them or give away the bike, whatever he did. And he conned me. And then the funny thing in that podcast I talk about, but every weekend after I did a stunt show, my mom was like, is this guy ever going to pay you? And I was like, no, Mom, the way he set it up was that I got to do 7 shows first to prove myself. Then after the 7th one, he'll start paying me. She's like, you've done like 15. I was like, oh, but those didn't count, you know, like. So my mom would be like, when's the check coming? When's the check coming? You know. So then fast forward later, when I'm actually pro and I started getting like real checks, you know, like I was like, oh, there's a check, mom, here, you know, like, and they weren't even crazy, like they weren't crazy checks, but essentially now that I look back at it, when you're sponsored and you're getting like at the time, like BMX was pretty decently paid. Now it's very little because like the sport is struggling.
Yeah.
But at the time when you're getting like $600 or $700 a month from each sponsor, it adds up. And also, like you're business dude, so you know what it's like to make $600 all profit is not what people think. Yeah. That could be $1,000, that could be $1,500 in sales just to make $600 clean profit, and even that might be a high number. You know what I mean? Yeah. So to get a $600 check to ride your bike was sick. You know what I mean? So I kind of jumped around there, but essentially, I figured out this guy was conning me. And one day I decided to go to the factory where those bikes were being made. And I hit up the dude. And the dude, ironically, his name was Gary Turner. Mm-hmm. Gary Turner started GT Bikes. Okay. And he owned Axis Bikes as a side project. Yeah. And he's like, hey, man, like, you got bikes here whenever you need. Like, I know this guy conned you, whatever. But they were kind of like, oh, it's just Bobby. That's kind of what he does. But for them, it was kind of like, well, he brings us these talented kids. And, you know, like, we'll give them bikes and, you know, spread our company's name. But that company, Axis, like a lot of the dudes that rode for them at an early age now are some of the bigger name dudes that are like on all the X Games, stuff like that. So there was something there where like they saw kids that were like decently talented, or at least kids that were applying themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so when did stuff start ramping up that you knew that this was going to be a career for me?
I never looked at it as a career. I think once you go all in on something and it doesn't work, it feels like the end of the world. And I think that was kind of like my defense mechanism at losing my father. Mm-hmm. I was like, you know what? I'll never want to put everything into one, you know, everything into my parents or anything. So I'll split it a little bit, right? So I looked at like the field and I was like, I see these BMX riders and like the chances of me turning pro are very slim. The chances of me turning pro and being really, really good and winning contests, even slimmer. The chances of me doing that and making a career that makes enough money to sustain my life, even slimmer. So do I want to make that gamble? So I always focused on school. I had a side business again with my friend Fu from Epic. Mm-hmm. I basically did his mail order through eBay and we did really good there. So BMX was always kind of like an afterthought as far as a career goes. You know?
Gotcha.
So when it really clicked, and you know what it's like, once you get your foot in the door on something, that doesn't mean it's fully running optimally. You still have to like figure it out, navigate. So I wouldn't say it was really clicking until I was like 23 or 24. But again, I was already basically done with college. Yeah. I went to Cal State Fullerton and I studied international business. I had this business on the side. And then the only time I really was like, you know what, fine, I'll take some time off to do this like serious was when DC Shoes put me on their pro team. And like, that was like a significant check. So I was like, all right, cool, fine. But even then I still had the side hustle. I was still flipping things or doing things. I was like, I'm never just going to rely fully on this one thing just in case something happens. And ironically, I've always just like, it was my defense mechanism, but at the same time, I didn't know this, but I had weak knees. So I ended up blowing my knees so many times and having to get surgery and waiting and not riding. So I never really had like a great season where I would look back and be like, that whole year, I didn't have any injuries or anything like that. It was always one thing out of next after another injury. So I'm always blessed that I looked at it that way and like, one, had a backup plan, two, had a backup thing to keep me occupied. When I did get injured, I could run this business or do this or flip this or just stay busy, you know, because if not, I go crazy. Like going back to the ADD, that's where it comes from. And yeah, I remember like 23 through like 27, like for 3 or 4 years, I really gave it a little bit more of my time. But again, that's when I started getting injured more. And then that's when kind of like business opportunities presented themselves. And that's when Adam and I started working together. And that's when we like really took on some shit serious. Then DC Shoes canned their whole action sports program. Like basically cut out females, cut out BMX. They would skate and surf. And at that point, it flipped a switch. I was like, oh, that check's gone, you know? And at that point, it also flipped a switch like, oh, all these years, they used me like a big-ass billboard. Yeah. And now that they pull the rug, I don't have anything. Yeah. Right? So why not just make ourselves a billboard for ourselves? You know? So that's when we started taking on some shit more serious, made it like a real company, made it a brand, made it a store, doing all that stuff. Basically, like my turmoil of DC, I turned into that, which reminds me of this really good quote that in every disadvantage, there's a seed of equal or greater opportunity. So whenever something terrible happens, you can turn around and just make something even better. And that's what we did with On Some Shit. Like, we started launching stores, doing all this other stuff because, you know, like once DC pulled out of not just my life, but from BMX altogether, at the time we were running another brand called The Come Up, which is basically like almost like TMZ meets ESPN for action sports. And they were going to do this crazy deal where they were going to sponsor everything. And it was like a big deal. And then they pulled it all out. So it was like probably like a $400,000 or $500,000 decision that they made, you know, like affected 15 pros, affected the industry, affected all these other things. So when we noticed that, we're like, well, double down on it. If there's this void, if we go hard, then we can do something with this, you know? And that's what we did.
At what point did you and Adam cross paths, and what made it that you wanted to go in business with him? Because me personally in business, my idea has always been, you know, do it as much by yourself as possible and try to keep, you know, any partners away, just because I haven't found anybody that I can just click with, like, yo, you get it. Let's make this happen.
So there's another saying that says, like, never fool yourself, right? But always remember you're the easiest to fool. So a lot of times the same advice you give someone else, you might not necessarily do it for yourself. I never really thought that I would get into business to begin with. Like, I always thought, like, I don't know, when I was younger, I was going to school to be a doctor. That's like originally what I really wanted to do.
Wow.
But then I realized, like, when I started going into like the med programs, that it would take a lot of time, right? And not that I wasn't willing to do the work, or I didn't think I was intelligent enough. It was just that I realized, like, oh man, if I do all this, then I won't be able to start a family until like I'm well into my 30s or anything like that, right? Well, look at me now, well into my 30s. I could easily have done it if I wanted to, but, you know, it's just one of those things where it just didn't feel like putting all my effort into that didn't make sense at the time.
Got you.
So I never really envisioned even BMX or business or anything like that. That just kind of like happened, right? Same thing with partnerships. Like, Adam and I essentially just started working together because I realized that I was going to school for business, admin, stuff like that. So I was like, oh, I can help him with his business. It'll be a cool side thing. Again, like another something to dabble my feet in. But then as we started working more and more together, I was like, oh man, you need more help with this. You need more help with that. And it just became like a full on 100% thing, like where I essentially was like helping manage him, manage our athletes, manage our friends, like do a bunch of stuff for people that just didn't know how to do it. And the hard thing with that is that if I go and build you a house, right, with my hands, and you have this house and you live there for the rest of your life, you'll always remember like the house that you built, right? But when you do things that help people and you do things that like you prop them up or you're there, once they're all set up, a lot of people forget you. You know what I mean? And that's not just for that relationship. That's just for a lot of things in life. You know what I mean? Sometimes we give too much of ourselves to certain situations, and then at the end, like, they don't pan out how we foresaw or foresee. But it's also because sometimes we just like think that a certain way when another person doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
So with that being said, like, I've been a part of a lot of different companies with a lot of different partners, and partnerships are cool. But the thing is that partnership is just like a marriage. It's the same thing. You're going to get in bed with this person for who knows how long. And if you look at it, 75% of all businesses fail. I think it's like 85% of them do it in the first like year or so. You know, like, it's very rare that someone lasts 3. And then you got to think, like, On Some Shit's 10 years old. The Come Up is like 12 or 13 years old. So like the fact that these companies have made it that long is already like cool in its own. But just people change, you know, like, and it's not good, not bad, not anything. It's just after a certain time, like, things just go different ways in different directions. But, you know, like, it's one of those things where without all those things in my life that happened there, I wouldn't be who I am today. So Definitely. I would not change very much of anything. Like, there's small little things that I would make adjustments, like, oh, maybe we should have gone that direction versus this direction. But I probably wouldn't even be here talking to you today if it wasn't for a different churn or a different DM or a different whatever. You know,
likewise. Right. Yeah. So, did you live in New York?
No. So Adam started to come up in New York, moved to Long Beach. We became friends because I lived in Lakewood, which is right down the street from Long Beach. And we had like similar friend groups. And then he was interviewing people for his website. And then I was a rider. So we became friends like that.
Got you.
And then essentially, No Jumper, like, that was Adam's. From the very beginning, I always remember he was like, man, I just want to interview people. I just want to interview
Really?
people. And the very first podcast were done in my garage.
That's
for no
dope,
jumper.
man.
Yeah.
You know, another one of my buddies brought you up, and he said that he used to bike with you back in New York. Baby food.
No, see, there's another Alfredo
Okay.
in the East Coast.
Really?
But he's not, like, he was like a bigger dude. I remember he used to DM me and talk shit to me because he's like, I'm the only Alfredo.
No shit.
And then in my head, I didn't say it, but I was like, well, I'm better at biking than you, so I'm keeping the name. But yeah, there's another Alfredo, like, from he's a bigger
really.
dude. So when people say Adam and Alfredo from back in the day, that was like a whole different clique.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've gotten that before.
Oh, okay. Got you.
That's what,
So-
when you said New York. I was like, nope, not me.
Yeah, I thought you spent time out there.
I've been there, but never not in that era.
Got you.
Yeah.
So when did you guys open the On Some Shit store?
So it was 2000, at the very end of 2013. Let me see, make sure that's right. 2012 going into 2013. I'm right now like scatterbrained with numbers, but yeah, it was around like October, November-ish. And again, not something we planned. It was, we were looking for a store. No, sorry, we were looking for an office.
Yeah.
And we had just taken on our second partner for On Some Shit, because when the come up was running real dialed, it was like, well, that's kind of like the polished look. We want a edgy clothing brand or whatever. Excuse me. The bad thing about drinking soda water.
It's all good.
But so Adam was like, yeah, I kind of want to do this edgy project On Some Shit. And I was like, oh, damn, like, why not run it? So I would help him with like the merch side and stuff like that. But then this guy Rob came into the picture and was like, hey, man, I think you guys have something dope here. I want to help you guys build it. I want to buy part of the brand. I want to be a partner, whatnot. So we did. And that basically was like a catalyst. Like, it just, everything ramped up real fast, because now it's like, okay, well, we got a little budget. We got like an idea and more direction. So let's do it. So then we're like, all right, let's look for an office building. We were looking in downtown LA, and like offices started at like $1,500, $1,800 in downtown LA for like smaller than this room. We're like, I don't know if like we want to bring in people. And then we started looking at offices that were nice. Those were like $5,000. You're like, oh, well, we can't afford that. And then I'll never forget, like, this really flamboyant real estate agent was like, hey, I got this spot. You guys can come check out. And I was like, all right, cool. He's like, it could be an office, but it can also be your store.
Yeah.
And I was like, ah. And one of the things I learned early in life, like, if you're a good salesman, it helps with everything. A salesman, you can talk to girls because you're good at selling yourself. You can sell product. You can sell whatever, right? Well, as I'm going through that kind of like learning, I also realized when you're bargaining with someone, the person that has the least to lose is the one that's probably going to win. Mm-hmm. So from the beginning, I was like, I'm not interested. And he was like, come on, man, the store's like really good. What's your budget? And I was like, well, less than 1,500. He's like, let's see if I can work with that. So he writes up this contract, and he's like, okay, here's the deal. I can't do 1,500. I could do 1,800. And I was like, I'm not even interested. I'm going to walk. And he's like, no, come back. So he's like, all right, well, how about instead of you having to pay, $1,500 a month every month of the year, what if I give you the first month free? Uh-huh. And I was like, okay. But I was like, when do we move in? He was like, well, you can move in November. I was like, no, I need it sooner. So I was like, I'm out. He's like, no. All right. So by the end of it, we negotiated, and he was like, you know what? The first month is free. The second month is half off. And the third month has a quarter off. So it was like scaled up. And then that's good for 3 years. I was like, all right, bet. Now the problem was that I had never had a store before or anything. I didn't know much about it, right? I don't know what got into it. Well, he gives us the date of move-in. And Adam, on the come up, announces that we're going to have a store. And the grand opening is like 30 days after that.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, oh, yeah. I didn't know what went into this whole thing. You know what I mean? So for 30 freaking days in a row, I worked my ass off. Basically had to learn, like, I had already had some experience of construction, and I'm always like pretty hands-on, but like I had to do basically the full thing, get it all dialed up. I don't know how we did it, but in 30 days, me, John Hicks, which is another BMX YouTuber, and a couple other homies, like, got it done. Adam is not a very like hands-on kind of guy, so he didn't really do much. Yeah. But we got that thing done. Then, like, all right, now it's open. Now what? Again, I didn't have much experience in retail or anything like that. Like, my last job prior to that was when I was like 19, working at like Verizon or something like that. Like, that was like, I did that on the side right before I left on some bike trips to just get some extra money. But I didn't really know what went into all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a big learning curve very quickly. And it went well. Like, like we started generating enough income to pay pay rent, pay John to help us and whatnot. And then we basically we're like, well, this has got to be modular. If it's going to be our office, we have to have like a lot of people coming through so it can make sense. If it's our store, we have to have events. So we had a ride every month to try and like bring in traffic to do stuff like that. And then we had the media site, which is the Come Up, to basically help all that stuff. So to this day, I look back, I'm like, damn, how do we do so much stuff at that one little tiny place? And then that's where Adam essentially, because the first podcast was done in my garage. And then once we got the store, we're like, oh, perfect. We have the office. Now you can do your podcast here. So that'd be perfect. And it was just one of those crazy things where like we became friends with this rapper kid that was friends with our other BMX homies from like the Midwest. This kid named Tony Maloof, that's a filmer for No Jumper. Shout out to Tony. He introduced Adam to this rapper kid, and Adam's like, all right, I'm gonna interview you. His name is Xavier Wolf.
Hell yeah.
So that was like one of the very first, like, and man, Xavier's one of the baddest ass dudes, you know what I mean? Like super cool, like down to earth. Like that's like a good first person to meet in the hip hop world.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people after that were not very cool.
Yeah.
But he is, and he's still one of my good friends and like awesome. Like we did collabs together. We did, events. He would, invite us to his shows at the Ham on Everything things. One day, this is crazy. I had just bought, it was probably like 6 months. I had an E92 M3, sorry. Yeah. And they were the ones with the keyless entry, right? Well, they had a little glitch where if you walked close to it or while walking away, sometimes it would just unlock it.
Okay.
And we went to an Xavier show, and as I'm at the Xavier show, I get a call from the cops, and I'm like, yo, man, do you have a white M3? And I was like, yeah. He's like, where is it? And I was like, it's in the alleyway by my store. He's like, no, it's not. And I was like, what? So someone just randomly checked, and the car was unlocked, and they stole the car. But in my car was this one-of-a-kind BMX bike that got stolen. The car they gave me back.
Yeah.
The bike I could not get back, ever. And that thing sucked, because like, I wish they would have stole the car. I had really good insurance on it, so I just got a fat payday. Yeah. No, they took the bike, which I could never get back, so that was crazy. But
what's crazy about Xavier Wolf is he ended up teaming up with Tuner Evolution to doing their shows, and
so did we.
Yeah. I remember I saw you guys there last year, but I saw Xavier Wolf in Daytona Beach. 2016, right? And before then, I had seen him at a show, and to this day, I still can't remember what show it was. I don't know if it was like Limp Bizkit or he opened for somebody.
They definitely, it was probably Limp Bizkit.
Okay,
Limp or Fred Durst ended up having like some sort of ownership in the Team Sesh merch, I believe. So
got you.
So I know they were working together.
So it was probably that, because I remember I heard one song and I was like, "Who is this dude?" I found him on SoundCloud, and then I ended up meeting him at the show, because before they start the show, everybody has to leave, and only one person could stay at the booth, and the fire department has to go through and check it out, right? So at that time, I knew that he was the rapper, and I didn't know who he was because I didn't listen to any of his music, but I just knew that name because I was like such a random name. So I went up to him. I'm like, yo, what's up, man? And we just talked. We talked for like 20 minutes, took him to the booth and things like that. And then ever since then, dude, I've fucked with him heavy, bro. Like,
there's just some people you meet that you're just like, man, you just have this vibe to you. It's like super down to earth. You're not into yourself, but you are popular and super talented. He's definitely one of those cool dudes.
I've just went to so many shows, and I'll see him at the show, say what's up, not try to take too much of his time, just show him some love and keep moving. But big shout out to him, dude. I want to have him on the
That'd be
podcast.
Sick.
That was actually one of my goals for 2019. I did like a 4 people list early in 2019, and I didn't accomplish any of them on there, but 2020
people got some time. You might want the apocalypse angle, like, hey bro, might be the end. Let's
right. So then they do that podcast, and that starts to blow up. So which
is crazy, because looking back now, like, it would be like, oh man, like, oh, you did Xavier. Well, my other homie, this guy, you should come do him. He's pretty cool. And this dude walks in, kind of shaggy looking. I was like, Pooyao.
Yeah.
And then another dude's walked in, like Suicide Boys. Yeah. And then it was like, oh, there's this crazy kid that's coming to come in. He's kind of, like, he's about to blow up. A little pump. And then, oh man, this other kid's coming. He's got red braids. Little Yachty. It was like crazy. Like every time I was just like, oh man, I knew, I've always known Adam was going to be super successful.
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where like we're almost there and then something happens. You're almost there and something happens. So then at that point I was like, nah, this is gonna happen. And then I think the thing that really tied the nice bow was like, so it must have been let me do some math real quick. So we're in 20 now. So 2017 was when we moved. So yeah, so New Year's, so like 2016 was coming to an end. Our lease is about to end. So that means that we were there 3 years. So yeah, 2013. So that was like the actual 2013 was downtown LA, and then 16 it expires. So then into 17, I remember my friend Casey and I, Johnny has these friends that used to rent out, so Man Cobra, that rent out fancy ass cars.
Okay.
I don't know where they get the money from to buy these cars, whatever, but they rent out these super fancy cars to rappers.
Yeah.
And my brother would do the service on all these fancy ass cars, which is again how he learned how to really wrench on like Ferraris and Lambos. And for Christmas, they were going out of town, so they left my brother a Ferrari. It was a 458, a silver one. So my brother was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go hang out with my girlfriend. You want to take the Ferrari?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I told my friend Casey, I was like, "Yo, my girlfriend at the time is having a Christmas party. No, sorry, was it Christmas or New Year's? It must have been like one of the two, Christmas or New Year's.
Gotcha.
I can't remember. But I have a vlog about it, so I can go and reference that. So I tell my friend, like, let's go to this Christmas party. I'm sure she has like a friend that you might want to talk to, whatever. So we go to this party, and I'm always on my phone, obviously, connected to it. And my girlfriend at the time was like super pissed that I'm always on my phone. So she's like, when you come to my house, you better not be on your phone. I was like, fine, whatever. But I've always had this affinity in case something happens or whatever. But okay, fine. So I turn my phone, put it away. We're having fun, whatever. It's like, it was New Year's because it's about to be midnight. So everyone was getting ready for the thing. And I checked my phone and I had like 25 missed calls. And I'm like, oh, God damn, I knew it. Knew I shouldn't have listened to her. So I check, and the first voicemails are like, everybody trying to get a hold of me, and like Adam, my friend Chris Long, all these other people are getting a hold of me.
Yeah.
There's a break-in at the store. Everyone's drunk.
So shit.
At their own little event. So who has to go save the day?
Sober one.
I think I had one glass of champagne, so I was fine.
Yeah.
So we rip from Redondo Beach to downtown LA in this Ferrari, and we pull up. And at the time, at the store in downtown LA, Adam's cat was living there, Tony.
Yeah.
This big fat cat. And I was more concerned with Tony. I was like, oh man, like we could replace everything else. We got insurance, but Tony, like if he's out, that's gonna suck, And he's old and fat. He's not gonna make it.
He's a house cat.
He's a house cat, and he's in Skid Row. And I just remember getting there, and one of the cops like, we have Tony. He's fine. Sick. And I look at him, and he has all white hair. I could tell you had just been holding him, like so it's cool. And then I go in, I assess everything, and essentially just like a homeless person threw a brick through the window, went in, tried to take the cash register, ran out with it, fell onto the cash register, never even opened it. So couldn't even get the $50 that were in there, because we keep it like a small till.
Yeah.
And he essentially caused like probably $2,000 to $3,000 worth of damages. Broke the door, broke the iPad, broke the cash register. Just nothing good came out of it for either one of us. You know what I mean? Except at that point I had it. I was like, we got to get the hell out of Skid Row.
Yeah.
Like, of course, no Little Yachty, Little Pump, all these people weren't who they were now. They were just still coming up. But I already knew. I was like, no, like we are running a cool brand, and like we need to take it somewhere cool. So literally that night, I essentially because it was like holiday, so we couldn't get like construction or anybody to come help us. So I boarded up the windows. Again, it's in the vlog, so you guys can watch it. But boarded up the windows, got everything like dialed in, and then scheduled everybody to come fix whatever the repairs were. But that week, I was convinced I was gonna find a store. Little did I know, moving into the Melrose area was gonna be literally like 10 times more expensive than we were paying in downtown LA between everything. But I think that was like the big double down that we did in order to get to where we're at. You know what I mean? Like fake it till you make it kind of thing. I remember again, it was like first store and now second store, and it was a big jump. And this in business, like big places, big, they need big deposits. Yeah. So not just first and last month, they need an insurance in case something happens. So I basically got to put up my house. It's like 25 G's we had to put down, and first and last month. So it was a lot, but we did it. And then kind of like, I was super nervous about that one. And then Adam did the same thing again. He's like, oh, got a store 30 days from now. We're going to be down. I was like, not again. So you can watch this is when I was vlogging every day, or at least so people get to see the whole creation of that store and like how the brand was moving and stuff like that. And then to add insult to injury, or to make it even better, I guess, during the grand opening, there's like essentially a mini riot happens, you know, because some kid came and stole a bike, and I'm on the megaphone announcing it while on YouTube Live, and I'm like, beat the fuck out of him, you know, he stole a bike. He turned out to be this crazy dude that was on bath salts, and he escaped from an ambulance, and he was like still wired up with like the EKG things, and he runs up and he's like fighting my homies and fighting my friend Phil, and Phil's kicking the crap out of him, and then he comes at me, so I sock him once, and like the dude will not go down, and I was like, this is a superhuman, like, and it took like 5 people to wrestle him down, and then finally the cops come and arrest him, like, oh, that's just Jason, like he was junkie, whatever. It was wild, but all that stuff's on YouTube.
Fucking Bobby Brown's cousin, dude.
Yeah. Nah. Dude, somebody told me they saw Bobby Brown one day, and I was like, oh man, like I don't wish him bad, but it's con man, dude.
Now, before we get off of No Jumper, did you ever get to meet Little Peep?
Yeah, so a lot of the dudes, like, I'm just always kind of like, I'm here for business kind of thing, so I didn't want to come, like, to me, they were all probably up and coming or successful, whatever rappers. So every time I met someone, it was always like, hey, what's up? You know, dap it up, but keep it moving. I didn't really sit around like, hey, what's up, man?
Got you.
And when he had first come to the store, he had just been like featured on, I forgot what vlog or like what hip hop site, but they were talking about his Crybaby tattoo or one of the tattoos. And I remember I was like, oh man, that is a pretty bad tattoo or whatever. Yeah. But you know, I never really had like a full conversation, but he was super cool when he would come to the store. One of the things I will say though, like a lot of the dudes that have come by, and it's almost like a weird premonition, when I met them, I kind of had this vibe that they weren't on the good path kind of thing. Like every time I saw Juice, he was like really fucked up. Peep, same thing.
Fuck.
XXX, I always had this weird vibe with him whenever I talked to him. He was super nice, don't get me wrong, but it was like there was just so much weight on his shoulders. I felt like I could feel that energy with him, you know, and like it's crazy how many of the dudes that came by that store are no longer with us. You know, like Mac Miller was supposed to get a day in the life or like a vlog 2 days before he died too. Like it's just crazy. Like a lot of the people in that world, you know, and it's like a weird like combination of things. Obviously drugs, a lot of gang stuff. It's such a hard thing. But when you meet these people and like you're like, oh, they're super cool, and you wish them well, but a lot of them, man, you can tell they're not running with the right groups or you know, because at the end of the day, it's like people are going to be around you for your success and for like the affluence you bring or the money and stuff. But when it's all gone, they might be gone. And while you're doing the things you shouldn't be doing, they're not going to really advise against it because they don't want to lose their position that where they're at. So a lot of these dudes just need someone to pull them to the side and be like, yo, man, cut it out. You know, like I know Juice was going through it because his dad had just died and stuff like that. So self-medicating is real. And especially when, you know, right before this, the whole fentanyl thing, like it's just all real scary, you know?
Yeah, rest in peace to all of them.
Rest in peace to all of those dudes, man.
I didn't really get familiar with Little Peep until he passed. You
Right.
know, to me, it was just another Little, you
Right,
know, and I was
right.
gonna get to them whenever our paths cross. You know, whenever they come up with a song,
Right.
super popular or what have you. But when he came out, and then let me just listen to it and like listen to Ben's Truck. I'm just like, what is this? This is like because I'm really into rap, hip hop, that community, but I also grew up on, like I was saying earlier, Warped Tour, emo,
Right.
like that kind of
So then
music
you
as
might
well.
know one of my friends that was actually really close to Peep is Travis Mills. So T Mills used to be big in the Warped Tour scene too. And like he essentially is from the Inland Empire, and he was one of the dudes that helped discover Peep.
Really?
And he got him one of his first record deals. So when he passed, it hit Travis really hard. And like he's one of my best friends, and I knew he went through it. And it's crazy because this is probably like 6 months ago. I didn't know any of this stuff because like, you know, so one of those things that, you know, like you're not going to just ask someone randomly, but I was at his house one day and he had a bunch of little Peep plaques and I was like, what the heck is this? And he's like, oh man, I helped discover him. So like he gets some of the plaques when he went platinum. So it's super sick to see it, but it's just super unfortunate, you know, like, and it's one of those things where like a lot of people glorify death, and, you know, it's one thing to not be afraid of it, but it's the other thing is like to just play too closely with it. And I don't think he tried to take his life. I think like obviously the fentanyl was just like an overdose. Same thing with Juice. You know, I don't think it was an intentional thing, but you know, a lot of kids are really gravitating towards that kind of music or just creating a lot of music, which definitely like creates this like affinity with like the idea of loving to die and all that stuff, which when you're sad, you know, it hits home and stuff, but it's one of those things where it's just dark, and I don't know.
Yeah, there definitely has to be the rainbow at the end where you see the guys go through it and then they pull through,
right?
You know, but we're not seeing a lot of that pulling through, and that a lot of that isn't being publicized on the mainstream.
It's not hot, you know what I mean? Like you said, like you're gonna get around to it once you heard that hit song, you know. But what is a really hit song? A lot of times it's not even what the artist wants to make.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, oh yeah, we got this beat and this hook and you got to jump on it and it'll make you popular and this and that. And for a lot of dudes, like I think it doesn't really fulfill them. You know, like a lot of artists, when you meet them, I think I always call that the Justin Bieber effect, where they just seem like they're just going through life because they know that the Justin Bieber that we all know isn't the real one, right? And a lot of the accolades they get, it goes to Justin Bieber, the name, but it's not just him. It's the publicist, it's the marketing team, it's the stylist, all these people that create that one dude. And sometimes that dude, if you remove all that stuff, is maybe nothing.
Yeah.
No diss to Justin Bieber. I like his music. You know, so people will be like, "Oh, you like Bieber?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's pretty talented." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of his sad songs hit home, you know. But, you know, that's why sometimes when you see like a YouTuber that's like does his own content, like, and you really vibe with him, you're like, "Oh, he really does make everything." And that dude has like a different aura than someone that's like created or like that's put together by a bunch of people. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I definitely feel for them because a lot of people are like, no, you're rich, you're successful, like life's easy. It's like, no, man, like everybody has like their own hardships. Everybody has their own, you know, it's like one of those things where once you get addicted to the numbers, and not so much the money, but just the numbers of like, okay, well, my last song did 10 million plays. Can I reach that? Once you reach those pinnacles, how the hell are you going to surpass that?
Yeah.
And one thing I remember now that comes full circle, the dude that got me into BMX is Dave Mirra. When I turned pro for DC Shoes, I got to become friends with Dave Mirra and go on the road and talk with him. And unfortunately, he took his own life, you know? And that was a combination, you know, and this is not like insider information. This is just my personal perspective on it. But Dave Mirra reached the heights of almost anything he did. He was one of the greatest, to this day, BMX riders all around. Once he kind of like retired from BMX, he became an amazing cyclist, got into boxing. He fought Brian Deegan. I got to go to that event. It was super sick. It was at Ellis Mania, another former skateboarder. And then he started getting into rallycross, you know, like, so just a dude that just like was in the pursuit of always like finding out like his limits and becoming the best that he could. And, you know, I tip my hat to people like that, because to be number one is the hardest thing you can ever do, because it's so hard that not obviously very many people can do it. Then to sustain that number one, you have to constantly push people down and constantly reinvent yourself. And it's such a big burden. I mean, ultimately, I don't think he ever found any more fulfillment in life, and then, you know, took his own life.
Yeah, it's sad, man. Much love to all those guys. If you guys have never listened to Little Peep, I would definitely recommend to. Since everybody's going to be chilling, go to Netflix and watch the documentary, Everybody's Everything. Or I think that's the name.
Yeah, I saw, like I said, my homie Travis is in it. He talks about it, and I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, dude,
but
it's
just
great.
I bet, yeah. I watched the Travis Scott one recently. That one's good too.
Oh, that one's dope. That one's really good. We actually watched the Peep one in theater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then
R.I.P. to those days.
Yeah, man. right now, right? And then I had my wife watch it, and she was just like, she was so heartbroken over the whole story and how everything went. You should check it out, dude.
Right.
It's nuts. But you know, kind of getting away from the topic of people passing away, the impact that they leave behind. Tell me about what it was like the day that you guys had the memorial for X.
So that was one of those days where you just felt like the heaviness in the vibe. And I remember it just, anytime we had an event, they were always like bittersweet, because I had to help, or I had to essentially put them on. I had to basically show face. And then at the time, whenever we would have any little event, like the police would come hound us and be like, "Hey, man, like what are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Oh, we're gonna have a little event. It's not a big deal." The neighbors hated us, so they would call the cops on us. It was just a whole thing. And for this one, I was like, let it rip. We'll see what happens, you know? And man, did we not expect what happened. You know, like, so you see the beginning of the video, there was a lot of people, which anytime we had like an event like that, like, and they were building, you know, like the event prior to that was Shoreline Mafia. And this is before people even knew who Shoreline was. And like that one got crazy. It was like a line around like 2 blocks, you know, and like our area is known for lines when you're on the Melrose Fairfax area. So for us, it was like, all right, well, as long as we keep it wrapped up around the block, the police can't give us too much hardship. Well, the first part of it, like the first wave, wasn't a big deal. But then as the day progressed, more and more people started showing up, and then people were tagging us, and it was going viral. And I just didn't think we understood fully like the grasp of the whole situation. And then, I don't know, probably around like 5, because we started the event early because we were trying to end it early because we were like, all right, that way less people will show. So I think we originally set a time for like 3. So by 5, it was already kind of getting crazy. And I was like, all right, well, let's just get a couple clips and see how it goes. And by then, when I got on the roof, that's when I realized, I was like, oh, damn, this is not going to be what I thought. And for sure, the helicopter starts showing up. I'm getting calls from the police. I'm getting calls from like higher ups, like deputies, and like, hey, man, you're going to be facing some fines here if like this gets out of hand. And then I was like, all right, shut the store down. Shut it down. That way it doesn't look like it's us. And then people just would not stop coming. And then my phone had never been blown up like that. Like people were like, I see you on the news. You're on the news. Your store, your brand, this is huge. I was like, no, the opposite. Like we're fucked. We're going to get screwed. And that's when like we shut it down. Like we close everything, turn the lights off. Everybody go home. I'm like announcing it. Nobody's listening. Yeah. They're shaking the store. And I was like, oh, we got to get the hell out of here. Adam made a flea for it with his girlfriend, Lena. And like, I was just stuck there. I was like the last one. I was like, damn it, because the captain has to go down with the ship kind of thing. Yeah. And I was like, so I finally like sneak out like through the back, because at one point it was like we couldn't even get out, you know. Finally sneak out, and as I'm leaving, I just hear like and that's people. They're shooting like bean bags and like tear gas, and I was like, oh man, I grabbed one. I collected like the canister.
No
like, oh,
way.
And then the next day, like I had like messages that are like, you're facing $100,000 fine and all this other stuff, and like. Luckily, I kind of doubled down and like was like, all right, bring it. And like they didn't ever really do anything after it, but yeah, it became a riot, like a legit riot. The other day I was at AGX, it's an avant-garde exotics.
Yeah,
and there was an off-duty tactical officer there, and it's funny that we were talking about him about what's going on now, but this is like 10 days ago now, and I was like, yo, you ever been to a riot? He's like, there hasn't been one in a while, and I was like, like 3 years ago. He's like, oh, the one on Melrose. And I was like, yeah, we kind of started that one. It's pretty funny. But yeah, it's like anything. Like when you look back and you've made it, you can like laugh and look at it. But when you're in it, I was scared. I was like, again, my house was on the line. If like something happened and someone, because kids were jumping off of the ONSOMESHIT building into the crowd and crowd surfing, stuff like that. And they were like, man, if someone broke their leg or something, someone died, you'd be like, $1 million lawsuit, you know, like. So,
I regret not going, dude.
No, man. Like, anybody that tells me that they're like, I was there, I was like, dude, I didn't see. Again, these are the times. Those are the days that I black out. I just go into auto mode and I just get the shit done. I don't remember seeing anybody there. I was like, oh, you were there? I was like, oh, I don't remember.
I saw one clip after it. Somebody put it together, and it was with one of X's songs, and it's like the helicopter.
That's at the end of my video.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah. That's like.
Like
so dope, man.
I had people. That's what's so cool about YouTube. You know, like that video went viral. I got 1 million views in the first day, so that was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was like, I was taking screenshots as it grew. It was like 50,000, 70,000, 150,000. I was like, oh crap, this is gonna go viral. And then as soon as it got to 950, it started slowing down, and then it hit 1 million, and then it's like YouTube turned it off. They're like, all right, now it's like at 1.3. You would think it would do better, like when they bring up stuff, it would just. But there's just so much XXX content out there that like it deviates the fans. But yeah, it was my first ever like million views. Like I had a couple of videos that were getting there. They were like 600,000, 700,000, and I was like, oh, that's gonna hit. And then that one did it in a day, and I was like,
that's wild.
Yeah, that was crazy. And yeah, but then obviously backlash, like anything. People are like, you guys are making money off XXX. I was like, dude, the event was free. We almost got sued for all this stuff. Yeah. Like people don't even realize like how little AdSense pays us as YouTubers for anything. So like people talk crap, but they don't even really know like the full scale of it. But yeah, man, it was definitely one of the craziest experience. Like the whole thing with XXX. I knew like from that first song when I heard it, I just knew. I was like, oh, this kid's huge. And he was asking Adam to manage him and all this other stuff. I was like, Adam, you got to do it. Like this is going to be huge for you, for everything. And like, yeah, unfortunately, but
super unfortunate situation, man. Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace,
man. So what was your best memory at the shop on Melrose?
There wasn't one in particular. It was just like the experience of every kid that would come in and just like be so happy to meet you, you know, just to be like, I've seen you, I followed your career, I follow your life. I know everything about this building, the cat, you know, like everybody there had like an identity and like their own little clout for whatever reason. You know, like somebody was like my homie Phil, like he's like a bigger dude, and everybody that knows BMX like, oh, you know Phil. I nicknamed him Fireball Phil. And like if you're a real fan, they would be like Fireball Phil. You know, like so it was cool to just create that bond where like you would go out somewhere, like we would just randomly be in Europe or South America or something, and somebody would come up to you and be like, yo, I love that video, or like this or that. I think that was like the best, just to know that something you made resonated. And also we used to print the shirts in my garage, so when I see someone wearing like an Awesome Shit shirt around the world, I'm like, you know, some of the early ones I was like, I printed that with my hands, like with 1 hour of sleep that day, you know, like, so it was cool for that kind of thing.
Very cool, dude. That's dope, man. Did you have like an auto press, or it was just like,
it was
how many color setup?
It was a 4-color process. My homie Fu from Epic hooked it up, and I ended up getting it stolen. I felt so bad. Like somebody broke into the store one night and stole like 10 bikes, stole the printing press. Yeah, they came up. And at the time, again, these are all learning curves, you know, like now I know fully, but I didn't know our insurance had such a high deductible. And so it was like a $2,500 deductible, and they ended up taking like $7,000 in product and stuff like that. So after everything's said and done, we only ended up getting like $4,200, which, you know how that stuff, to replace all the stuff, like it was way more expensive. Like that screen printer was like $7,000, but they give you depreciation and all sorts of stuff, so you don't get as much back. But all learning curves.
Yeah. So let's get to the closing of the store. What was the motivation behind that, and what's next for On Some Shit?
Essentially, since Adam has a podcast, much like yours here, any noise like that is, you know, starts reading the audio. Well, they started building this crazy thing next door. It goes 3 stories down, or maybe almost even 4 stories into the ground, and it's going to be like a 3 to 5 story high rise. I don't know exactly.
Oh, gotcha.
They're going to put in a 7-Eleven. They're going to do all this other stuff. So it was just a ton of construction and just super, super noisy. Retail is dying, to be honest, and this pandemic will be proof of that, because once we come out of it, there's going to be even more places are going to be desolate, and just, you know, people can't afford it. You know, in that area, Melrose, Fairfax, is ridiculously expensive. Our block was dying. We were like the only store. There's like one other store next to ours, and they are basically like on consignment, open kind of random hours. So we were the only one generating the foot traffic. We were doing everything, and it just became so much of a thing. And again, we never even thought about having stores like this. They just kind of like fell into like our brand. So our lease was up, and it was just like, let's just not renew. Gotcha. And then let's see what happens, you know. And now it's like as if we're mind readers, you know, like literally the day we shut down, 10 days later, the quarantine and all that stuff started happening in China and this and that. So now looking back, it's like, well, we made a great decision there. And at the same time, Adam's studio, where they do the podcast currently, they got kicked out for smoking weed there too much. So we have a warehouse, so it just all consolidated there. Yeah. So again, one of those things we're looking back now, it's like now you're saving so much on overhead that we wouldn't have otherwise. So, you know, blessing in disguise.
Yeah, hell yeah. I think I made one of the last purchases.
I think you told me.
Yeah.
Nah, you know, literally the day that I was like tearing everything down and putting everything in the U-Haul, some kid came in and I was selling stuff right there. And there. Really? I was like, nope, until the very end. Well, not because of the money, but because some kid came all the way out and like, I want to make sure he gets a hoodie or something. Like, I was like, yo, 50% off, whatever you want. He's like, what? And, you know, got a hoodie, got a t-shirt. Yeah. So, but you were definitely in the last week. I remember that because you
it was the day before. It was the day before because I remember.
But we still kept running it for a few more days.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Because again, like, no matter what, you got to think that, especially now with so much content, everything trickles down. So out of all the people that see your post, there's going to be a lot that don't. So a lot of people just showed up and they didn't even know, you know?
Yeah. Dude, this has been such an awesome conversation, man.
Thanks, man. I really enjoyed it.
I feel like we can just talk forever.
Oh, that's my problem. Blessing and a curse.
We need to have a part 2, definitely, man.
Yeah, I'm way down.
I wish you the most success with everything that you do, man. I get your vibe. It's dope, and thanks, you're just a hustler, and I love to see hustlers making it happen, dude. And it's awesome.
Thanks, man.
So before we get out of here, can you let everybody know where they can find you and where they can watch all these videos at? Because I was trying to scroll to the bottom and it took me forever, man. You killed it.
Thanks, man.
I love it.
Yeah. So if you want to get a hold of me at Alfredo Mancuso on Instagram, I'm there constantly, like just checking my DMs. If you want to check out the content, youtube.com/c/Alfredo Mancuso. I don't know if you knew about, but once you make your YouTube handle, when you're a little kid, you can't change it. When I was a kid, I loved Disturbed. I love this brand called Terrible One, and I was a biker. So my handle for YouTube to this day is Disturbed T1 Biker. Pretty embarrassing. I mean, I'm still down with the sickness. So let Disturbed know, but can't change that. So that's why you got to do the C/Alfredo. And then I'm on Twitter. I'm on everything at the same handle, Alfredo Mancuso.
Dope, man. I'll have it all listed below. Hey, I really want to tell you that I appreciate you coming, man.
Thanks, man.
You've kept it real from the beginning. You were never rude. Always cool off the bat.
Likewise, yeah.
And I was glad that we were able to make this happen. And this is like probably the closest to the deadline it's gonna get, because
for sure
we don't know where things are gonna be at next week.
I feel like you did a good job following up, but you must also have a lot of people that bail. Because once I put you in the calendar, I wasn't gonna bail, but you followed up so much, I was like, oh man, people must bail on him, especially now with uncertain times. But I was like, you know what, man? If I told you I was gonna do it, I'm gonna be there, no matter what.
No, dude. Even till last night, I was talking with my wife, and she's like, "Oh man, I hope he makes." I was like, "Yeah, me too." And she said, "Well, even if he doesn't, you just have to understand." I was like, "No, I understand right now, but there is those people that's like the hour before, like, hey man, I'm not gonna be able to make him." Like, come on, bro. You know me. Like, this is a side thing that I'm doing. I'm running a business. Like, my time is as valuable as yours.
Yep.
You know. But with that being said, I understand that people are very busy, and me, I'm very, very big with time, man. I appreciate you sharing your time with me, and hopefully people enjoy this conversation.
Hey, man, thanks for the opportunity. And likewise, like, it's rare when you meet people that are, you can kind of like already tell them, like, you know what I'm talking about? And they're like, yeah. So that's what this felt like. So it's beautiful.
Hell yeah, man. Shout out to you and everything that you're doing, man. Everybody, please go check out Alfredo. Check out On Some Shit. And check out some of those backlogs of the of the vlog. I was checking out some, and
you'll get sucked in, right?
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank you guys for listening. I also want to thank our sponsor, Heel Toe Automotive. Make sure you guys check them out on Instagram at Heel Toe Automotive, or on the website heeltoeauto.com. Honda retail site. They've been around since 2002. Really great people, and shout out to them, and shout out to all you guys that made it this far. Thank you once again. This is Downtime with Downstar, episode 155, and we out. Peace.
Later.